Captain, incoming message.
Intruder alert on deck 8. Enter authorization code. Command functions are offline. Automatic defense procedures initiated. Diagnostic complete. Sensors are functioning normally.
Hailing frequencies open. How's it going, everybody? It's once again time for Captain Rob's Trek Logs, or whatever we call it these days. I am, of course, Captain Rob, coming to you from the USS Shabby Road Studios, I guess. With me, as always, is Lieutenant Commander Tom Connors.
Ahoy, ahoy.
And with us, as always, is Miss Mecha Random. Lieutenant Commander Mecha Random.
We're talking about Alex Kurtzman today. I'm ready.
Okay, we're waiting on another guest, but in the meantime, let's beam aboard our other special guest. Okay.
Yeah, he was here and then he had to take a call, so hopefully he makes it back to us.
Okay, we got another special guest. Let's beam him on board. Let's hope this works. We've had our maintenance guys working on it. All right, everything okay. We just gotta give him a quick scan. No, okay, that was a two quick scan. Wrong sound effect. Nice way to go, Rob. Okay, everything seems okay. And our special guest, introduce yourself, please.
Well, I am Big Sexy from the Redshirts podcast, and I'm glad to be here.
Yes, we're glad. We're always glad to have you here. So, and like I said, we are waiting on another special guest. Hopefully, he got pulled away, but hopefully back. But it's always good. Q Storm couldn't make it.
Why not? What's his problem?
He had to take his son somewhere. So the perils of fatherhood, as he calls it.
Yeah,
so,
that's got to come number one.
That's right. Yeah, we all have our priorities, and that has to take. We have fun, but that's got to take priority. Yeah. So anyway, so we had some Star Trek news actually drop today. Before we get into the Alex Kurtzman, we're going to break down the Alex Kurtzman crew call podcast, and as best we can for everybody, we're going to comment on it. But we had some Star Trek news drop. Star Trek Hall H extravaganza swooping into Comic-Con with Picard, Discovery, Lower Decks, and more. You might want to set Comic-Con phasers to stun for this one. CBS All Access is bringing its entire existing Star Trek fleet to San Diego Confab later this month with Hall H takeover. That will include the cast of the mothership Star Trek Discovery, boo, the animated Star Trek Lower Decks, and the legend himself, Jean-Luc Picard. I've learned. Oh man, Picard, you're going to Hall H?
What is Hall H?
That's the stuff you put there. There will be boobs there. Hall H is the stuff you put on your ass for hemorrhoids.
Oh yes, I've got a big old tub of that.
Okay, and what's being described, being called SDCC 50, the back-to-back panels from the series that really started it all will take over the sprawling convention center's largest room from 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Saturday, July 20th. The Starfleet Triple Threat will launch their SDCC alum Discovery back in the house, with those expected on stage before the thousands that will pack Hall H are Comic-Con vets Seneca Martin Green and Discovery producers Alex Kurtzman, Michelle Paradise, and Heather Caden. And according to Jambalaya, what's the Jambalaya? What are they talking about? The Discovery guest star Tig Notaro, who plays Chief Engineer Jet Reno on the series, will be moderating. She's a freaking waste of space. Yep. What does she do?
What does she do? She makes stupid little jokes and drills holes in Silly Tilly's head. Silly Drilly Killy Tilly, whatever the fuck we're calling her, right?
Next up, with the first look, Lower Decks preview for the hardcore fans will be forthcoming animated series from executive producer Mike McMahon. One or two special guests are in store to join him, I hear. After that, Star Trek Kingpin Alex Kurtzman will be back on stage with Knight of the Realm Patrick Stewart for the first SDCC Star Trek Picard panel. No word yet if there'll be a preview of the 10-episode series set to launch on CBS All Access later this year, but you never know. What I do know is that Picard co-stars Alison Pill, Michelle Hurd, Evan Evagora, Isa Briones, Santiago Cabrera, and Harry Treadway, plus Michael Chabon, executive producer Kiva Goldsman, and Caden will be joining Sir Patrick Stewart and Kurtzman in Hall H for what is now become run-on sentence, man. Come on, you got to make this more concise. Has to be one of the most anticipated panels of the Fangirl Fanboy Fest. Okay. Here's the thing. The Trekverse is happening outside Hall H2. Okay, well, nobody cares. Merch, selling merch, yada, yada, yada. Celebrating, set the plans. Okay, yeah, nobody cares. All right. But yeah, they're going all in on this. They really are. They're going all in. This is, and I've said that there's going to come a time where they're going to push all their chips to the front of the table. And this is it. This is, I don't want to call it their last ditch effort to really sell people on Star Trek Discovery and the Kurtzman verse. But it's getting close.
Well, this is why they're doing this at Comic-Con. They're going for this kind of younger Comic-Con demographic instead of Star Trek fans, or else, where they would put it? Star Trek Las Vegas, where the Star Trek people go who actually want to see Star Trek news. They're trying to make it Marvel. They're trying to make it more exciting than it really is, because it's not even exciting. They're trying to get the superhero crowd and the action, or like the action-y stars, and that's not what Star Trek ever was.
Big Sexy, what do you think?
I got to tell you, I'm a little. First of all, Kurtzman's a tool. We all know this. But what got my attention about this little piece is talk of the animated Lower Decks. Now, that is something that I can find interesting because, and I'm not familiar with what they're doing in the animation, but if it's those same characters and they are stationed on the Enterprise, I'm all in for that. Whereas, Tig Notaro, she's fucking useless. Her being there means nothing. As far as Picard, I don't know if we're going to start here, but one thing that caught my attention about it yesterday is he's leaving or has left Starfleet.
Yeah.
What the hell?
There's actually kind of a related story about that. That producers, now I'm going to have to go to comicbook.com, which is what we call the propaganda arm of Star Trek, of CBS Star Trek. It would be fair to call it CBS Star Trek.
Well, that's what they are.
Okay. Yeah.
Another is on his way anyway, if not, so. Or
yeah. Star Trek.
Wait.
Yeah, Star Trek producer hints Picard may have made some regrettable decisions since Nemesis. Star Trek fans will catch up with Jean-Luc Picard later this year. Patrick Stewart returns to the role in Star Trek Picard on CBS All Access. Stewart is also a producer on the series. Alex Kurtzman, the producer in charge of developing CBS Star Trek television franchise, told Deadline why it's important to have Stewart's creative input. This is probably going to be one of the clips. It was essential. Kurtzman said in an episode, Crew Call Podcast. Okay. Okay, hold on. Let me skip over this. So it's wonderful to take. Okay, yeah. Kurtzman and company have kept details on the show's plot under wraps. We do know that Picard is no longer a Starfleet captain. The last time fans saw Picard was in the film Star Trek Nemesis. Set decades after that film, Kurtzman teases that Picard has changed and that he be regretting some decisions. Oh dear God. Proofread your shit, man. I'm not kidding. It says that he be regretting some of the choices he's made.
This is how professional Star Trek is lately. They don't even know their own crowd. And they can't even spell their own articles correctly either. What the hell?
Really? Nobody has Grammarly over there?
No.
Nobody?
Mm-mm. And I can tell you exactly what Lower Decks is supposed to be in this new animated series. Lower Decks is just the screw-off crew. Right? It's basically the Orville, because the Orville's popular. That's all it's going to be.
Yeah, we said that's all it is just an FU to Seth MacFarlane.
Yeah, and this other animated series is supposed to be like Star Wars, because he wants it to appeal to little kids. Because little kids, I guess, when like he was 7, he didn't understand Star Trek. I watched Star Trek 4 in the theater when I was 7, and I didn't have a problem with it. Maybe Alex Kurtzman isn't smart enough for Star Trek. Maybe he's just not a Star Trek fan.
Let's go around the room. Let's go. I'm sorry, Big Sexy. Go ahead.
No, I was just echoing random. Maybe he's not smart enough. He's not smart enough. Sorry.
I just want to go around the room. At what age what was the youngest age does everybody remember watching Star Trek? We'll start random.
Probably I was 7 when I was really, really, really aware of it, but I probably watched it sooner because I'd watch Doctor Who and a lot of the other stuff when I was a kid on PBS. So I'm sure I saw a few reruns here and there, but 7 is when I really, really remember liking it and getting into it. I know I'm old. I'm 40.
Yeah, well, so am I. Tom?
There's a time, there's not a time that I don't remember it. But my first actual experience would have been, 86, 87 when Voyage Home came out on video.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere around there. And then, of course, TNG, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Big Sexy?
Okay, you guys are young. Okay. I remember the show back when I was 8 years old in the early 70s. And I remember in the Bay Area, the Creature Features host, Bob Wilkins, will always plug the Federation Outpost up in Berkeley. So Star Trek always had a presence to me, even at that young age.
Mm-hmm. I remember being 4 years old, 1974, on Saturday afternoons watching Star Trek. That's how young I was. I was 4 years old. I didn't quite understand it, but I knew that I liked it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it was always with me. Yeah. My older brothers would make fun of me for liking it. Mr. Spook, the guy with the pointed ears, but yada yada. I'm like, okay, shut up. Can I just enjoy this? Dr. Spock, Mr. Spock, that pointy ear man, whatever we call him. But 4 years old, man. And Mecca and I were talking about this a couple days ago. If you're not a fan of something by probably the age of 4 or 5, or maybe 6 or 7, you're not going to be a fan. All these younger millennials that shop at Whole Foods and drive a Prius, you're not going to get them. They're not going to commit to this.
The thing is, I want to piggyback on what Random said about, Kurtzman in particular, not being smart enough to be a Trek fan. Now, I remember when I was a youngster, I don't know if you guys read comic books when you were young, but back in the 70s, there was regular Spider-Man, then there was the Electric Company Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah.
And I never picked up an issue of that because, to me, it was pandering to young kids who, I'm going to go ahead and say it, weren't as smart as me. Now, when I would watch Star Trek, that was, show for adults. Not adults in the freaky sense, but just it was written for adults. Whenever I looked at Star Wars back in 77, I'm like, this is the same shit aimed at kids and pass. I like to be challenged as a viewer and as a reader, and Star Wars didn't do that, and Kurtzman isn't doing it now.
Yeah. We have a super chat from Tiberius Monk 84, $5 super chat. Do you want to read it, Rob? Or?
Yeah, you read. Oh, here. Ka-ching.
My first Star Trek film as a teen was Star Trek Insurrection. First series was TNG. I knew this appealed to me in a way that changed my philosophy on life. Oh, yeah. Anybody you talk to who's a Trek fan, there's usually at least some part of their life that they gravitate towards Star Trek in some way. It's like, I want my life to be more like this, or I want to be more like somebody, or, I want to be able to, be as fearless as so-and-so, or whatever it is, said character you want to be like. But that's basically, to me, Trek is not just one of those franchises. There's a reason why it's got a selective fan base. And not to steal a line from Spinal Tap, our crowd is becoming more selective. But it does. There's a reason why it's not for everybody, and trying to make it for everybody is just making it not Trek anymore.
All right. Well, anyway, we talked about Kurtzman and how he's not smart, and let's get into this, okay? Alex Kurtzman did a interview on something called the Crew Call podcast on Deadline. Now, we're not going to go over the entire interview, but I've tried to break down about a dozen and a half of the more informative bits of the interview. They range anywhere between 30 seconds to maybe a minute and a half. So we're going to go over this. Okay. Now, we have 49 super chat from the Echo Base Network. Thank you very much. TOS reruns. I watched first with my dad, but DS9 was my favorite Trek series. Keep up the good work, guys. Love your content. Thank you very much. So, okay.
Actually, just made with that wench.
Okay. Now, like I said, we're gonna go over this. Okay. Now, Alex Kurtzman, he sat down with these guys. Now he's gonna talk about in this clip. He's gonna talk about the process. He says it's about a 2 to 3 year process for this. Okay. Now,
give everybody some context here about this and where we got this from. And
okay, we got this from we got this from something called the Crew Call podcast. You can find it on iTunes. You can download it. It's a free download. You can also listen to it on deadline.com. Okay, it's a free download. You don't spend any money for this. Okay, you can listen to it in its entirety just in case because we don't want to take anything out of context.
Yeah, if you think we are, then go ahead and listen for yourself. Because let's be clear here up front. This interview dropped the day after we dropped our video clarifying the whole was Kurtzman fired issue.
Which we always said he wasn't, by the way.
In our video, we said 2 of our sources said he was fired. The third source said not so fast. He's being promoted out of his position as showrunner, and he's being pushed out to basically doing this kind of stuff. Fluff pieces. San Diego Comic-Con. He's the face of Star Trek, basically. That's
he's being Reg Barclayed is what it is.
Yeah, and everybody else is doing the grunt work, it seems. And this is just basically, it was weird because this interview dropped at 8:39 at night. So to me, that feels like it was scrambled out in some way. It wasn't dropped when it was meant to be. Because normally when pre-set up news drops, it drops at a specific time. 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 9 a.m., 6 p.m.
Lunchtime usually.
Yeah.
Mid-morning on the East Coast.
8:39 is just an odd fucking time.
Yeah. Okay, so like I said, you can listen to the entire in the interview in its entirety. It's roughly about 40 minutes. But right now we're going to take a listen to some of the more the better clips, clips. And like I said, we don't want to take anything out of context. But right now, okay, the first clip we're going to play. He talks about.
We also need to kind of say that we don't know when this was actually recorded. They don't say.
No, they don't say. My guess it was recorded a couple weeks before. That's my guess. Because he really doesn't offer. He doesn't. Well, you'll hear it. You'll hear by the information that he offers. Okay, you'll hear about the information he offers. But right now, okay, let's jump into this. Okay, is everybody ready?
Yes.
Okay. Now in this clip, he talks about the process, his process to create a series. Okay. And we're going to play this. It's about 41 seconds long. Here we go.
It's not like they're all going to be on the air at one time. You know, if we know that there's going to, if David wants a show, always, I have to start planning 2 to 3 years out now.
Oh, wow.
You know, and that's what we're doing. So the goal is not to have them be on top of each other, nor is it to rush anything out that's not ready. That's the biggest thing I can say is that, you know, when we did the first season of Discovery, we reached a point where we were realizing these effects are taking a long time. And what's going to happen if we hit that the original date that they had announced, we're going to compromise the visual effects and they're going to be bad. And we went to the studio and we said, look, I know this messes up a lot of things for you, but the truth is we really need more time. And they said, okay, we know a lot about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we know that's shit.
Yeah, pretty much. But
you didn't shoot anything. The reshoots have nothing to do with special effects, Mr. Kurtzman. You were delayed because of reshoots.
Right. We know that they were doing reshoots. We have reports of them doing reshoots.
But yet we're the ones who are, that are spinning a narrative. But anyway, continue, Rob. How do you feel about what he just said, or Big Sexy then, and Mecca, whoever wants to take it over next?
The guy sounds like he's in over his head. That's what he sounds like to me. You know, it sounds like he's making a lot of changes, not because of any real story, but just because they're convenient to him. And that ain't gonna work.
Yeah, I think you're right. He doesn't get anything. He reminds me of somebody who makes a lot of plans, and then once you know, they're like, hey, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, and then once you show up, they're like, oh no, I'm off to this other thing I've planned now. And now you're left kind of picking up the pieces, like, okay, well, I guess I'm just gonna go and do this thing and figure it out, even though you're off to planning your next thing.
So yeah, so basically, it's my brother Lou. Basically, he just makes all these plans, and then we're going to the game Friday. By Wednesday, oh well, I don't know. Yeah, maybe not. By Friday morning, we're going to the game. No, we're not going to the game. I'm going to go do something else. Pretty much, yeah. Dr. Coffin Nails, $2 super chat. Thank you very much. Watch Trek since first run syndication TOS. Yeah, same here.
Big Sexy,
Okay.
if you they're asking in the chat if you can turn up your volume just a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
How's
I don't
that?
know. I mean, I kind of hear what you guys a little bit better. Talk again.
Okay, how about that?
That's better.
Oh,
Yes.
perfect.
Cool.
Great. I hear what you guys are saying, but all I hear what Kurtzman is saying is spin, 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 because we all know what the reshoots were about. We know what the delay was about. It was because the show tested poorly and they had to go reshoot the entire show.
All right. Well, let's not spend too much longer because we got quite a bit to
Yeah, let's break into the next bit here. What's this next bit about?
Okay, the next one is about the animated series. Okay, and how the animated series, the plans for that and the process for that. Okay, so here we go.
So the Hageman brothers are doing a show for Nickelodeon, and that will be entirely different from Lower Decks, which Mike McMahon is doing for CBS All Access. And, you know, again, in the spirit of each of these shows has to feel very different. You know, Mike came up on the Rick and Morty writers' room. He ran the Rick and Morty show for the last a year or two. And so the DNA of all that is there. But you may have seen that Mike wrote a series of tweets that ended up being published as the unofficial, the eighth season of Next Gen. And it's in his bones. It's just in his bones.
Okay, he's referring to Mike McMahon, the executive producer of Rick and Morty. He was worked as a writer on Rick and Morty and the executive producer of Lower Decks.
Now, how similar is Rick and Morty to Star Trek?
It's not.
That's what I thought. I've seen like 3 or 4 episodes, and I don't remember it really being. I think it was closer to Family Guy.
They go into space. That's every so often. That's
so do they in Star Wars. You know, it doesn't mean it's Star Trek.
All right, we got a little bit more to go here. Hold on.
And it's a love letter to Star Trek. Both of these shows are a love letter to Star Trek. they're targeted at very different.
Love letter sounds more like hate mail to me. But
can we give you a rejection letter? This is a you're stalking me now. I'm not interested. This isn't Star Trek.
All right, we continue.
Groups. So Mike's show is really for kids, I would say 11 to 70.
Right.
And it is, you know, what I love so much about the way Mike is doing is planning things is that what would typically be the A story on any Star Trek episode is happening in the background.
Right.
Like huge, crazy shit is going on in the background, and that's super peripheral to the story that you're actually focusing on. And no show's ever really done that before.
Huge, crazy shit going on in the background, and that's on the peripheral. It sounds exactly like Discovery.
Or Fan4Stick. Oh God, this is gonna be Fan4Stick animated.
Well, here's the funny thing: is this is the animated show that has not been ordered to series yet. Correct, Mecca? From the thing, it's the Nickelodeon one.
The Nickelodeon one, I believe actually is ordered now.
Yeah,
Section 31. That's not.
This isn't though. He's talking about Lower Decks, isn't he?
Oh, Lower Decks.
Well, then what is he talking about? I'm in circles now with him.
Oh, he's talking about both shows, but the one he's referring to is the Nickelodeon series now.
Well, then why would you say crazy shit going on in the background?
I don't know, but we got about 20 odd more seconds of this.
Okay, why don't you just play the whole clips before we start?
Let's go. Let's keep going.
Yeah. I mean, Lower Decks to a degree did the episode from Next Gen. And then I won't announce the name of the Nickelodeon show, but that's a really different show. That's a show that's for kids younger, full CG animation. It's going to be
Okay. The crazy shit one was Lower Decks. Okay, that clarifies that. Okay, he wasn't very clear. Okay, let's go.
incredibly cinematic. We just started seeing boards this week. It looks like
Wow.
it's on par with Love, Death, and Robots in terms of beauty and lighting and cinema.
Wow.
And so it's a really different feel. Wow. And Nickelodeon has been wildly supportive, and I think very excited to bring a new energy to TV. And
that guy saying "wow" too.
I don't know.
He says it like 3 fucking times. It's like...
Because he doesn't want to say, "Are you stupid? Are you kidding me? What the fuck is wrong with you?" Etc.
Wow.
Etc.
Wow.
But now, if you go and if you listen to the entire thing, these guys are very generous to Kurtzman. They really are. Actually, Gary from Nerdrodic has just joined us. Thank you for joining us, Gary.
Hi, everybody. How you doing? I couldn't miss this.
Right?
You did a fantastic video on this already, even though it's much shorter than what we're doing here. But yeah, you broke a lot of this down. So far, we've covered. He's just got done talking about the cartoons, and we covered his overall. What did you call it, Rob? He called
it a 2 to 3 year process to develop a series.
Yeah, and before that, we just talked about the Hall H thing, which you had something to add to that, actually.
I did. So a couple things. It seems like there's been an opening in Hall H since Warner Brothers and Sony both backed out last minute. So they needed something for Hall H because they had a major hole in the schedule. And the schedule's a little late for Comic-Con, by the way. It's usually out by now. So it's curious to what's going on. Also, Hall H, listen, if Hall H was something where hits were made, then Snakes on a Plane would be the biggest movie of all time, because that was the biggest hit of Comic-Con. I was there. Everybody on the floor was talking about Snakes on a Plane. It was the greatest concept ever. And also Serenity. I love Serenity. I love Firefly. If you were at Comic-Con, that was the biggest thing there, and that movie flopped because Comic-Con is not where hits are made. No. And it's not. And actually, I just tweeted. There's a lot of people, and I think Mecca, you just mentioned this. Star Trek Las Vegas is now getting sloppy seconds from Comic-Con, and people paid $1,200, $1,300 to go to Vegas. Yeah. That's just for a ticket.
Yep.
And hotel and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Now they're not going to get any new content because all the good stuff's going to get dumped at Comic-Con. Luckily, I'm going to both, but like if you can get into Comic-Con, it's only $250.
Really?
So I'd be pissed.
Do you think the organizers gave them a severely reduced rate at this point?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's different. Comic-Con, I think, is still classified as nonprofit.
Yes.
So they don't charge exorbitant rates for these people to come in anyway. It's more, it helps the con too. And believe it or not, Comic-Con is run by 25, 30 people. That's it. It used to be 12. So yeah, they probably just came in last minute and said, please, please, please. And they're probably going to take a lot of their Star Trek Las Vegas stuff and just plop it there because it's just a month away. And it's only 100 miles away from LA, where most of those people are. Picard is filming in LA right now. So, and honestly, it would make, listen, I don't want to think that much of myself or us. I know we have some say in this, but I don't want to think that they did this to again, slap YouTubers, like really, or fans who are against this. If I ever thought for 1 minute that, maybe I'm just being hard on Star Trek Discovery and it's actually good and people actually like it, I'd back off, but it's not. They lie to us constantly. Alex Kurtzman is listen, he gets into some place and he's like a virus, and he gets this from JJ. What Mecca, you were just mentioning this. They get a job somewhere and they start slinging out plans for job security before anybody who hired them has a chance to even say no. All of a sudden, Alex Kurtzman gets there and goes, I want to do 5 shows. Based on what? Based on the hit of Star Trek Discovery. And we've talked about it before, but the only reason they came out with Picard was because Star Trek Discovery was a disaster and they need it to work, or CBS streaming goes down, because it was about to go down. And that's why they came up with this whole Star Trek thing in the first place.
I was saying at the top of the stream that they're going all in. They're pushing all their chips to the front of the table now.
Oh this is it.
Yeah, this is it. If this doesn't work, there is no plan B.
Yeah, Captain Robert April brings up another good example about another huge hit out of Comic-Con. It was later on, I guess, but Mallrats was another one that was huge at Comic-Con and then just belly flop.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Or even Fanboys. You know, Fanboys was a huge thing at Comic-Con, and
well, and that one I will give an excuse. The studio, I think, shelved it for a little while, didn't they? And that's what happened. Was
they did. I actually sat next to the director. I'm forgetting his name now, but he and I were talking and saying not so nice things about Olivia Munn. But yeah, he was cool. He was cool, and I liked the movie. So, but
I heard the movie they released was nothing like the original film.
No, and they showed a version of it at Comic-Con that was completely different.
That went very well, from what I heard too.
Yep.
So, anyway, back to what we were talking about and discussing.
Yeah.
Now, Big Sexy, did you have anything to add to the whole cartoon mess before we move on?
You know, and again, I'm going to sound like an old fart here. The fact that it's geared towards Nickelodeon, and I saw a quote about the cartoon being around a group of teens who finds a derelict starship. Right there, they lost me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so this is going to be some, but then again, it's not aimed at me, so it's easy for me to not think much of it, and I'm going to completely ignore it. So.
Well, I did. Remember, I did my rant about that group of lawless teens.
Lawless.
This continues on. It continues on in the Trek tradition. How is stealing a spaceship and going joyriding? How is that in the Trek tradition? You know, okay, it happened every once in a while, but don't you think in the 24th century they have ways to find a starship? Besides, and that ship would have a transponder. As soon as the navigation system would boot up, they would know. They would be able to track it. But that's neither here nor there.
They'll come up with some lame excuse of why it doesn't work. Right.
And I guarantee you, the female character is going to be the one that says, "Hey, I know how to disable the transponder.
We just unplug it."
Now, if they want to do something with teens, that's fine. Why don't they do something based on the Red Squad premise? There you go. Problem solved.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Starfleet Academy. You could do. I mean, there's a lot of different things you could do. Okay, but let's get back to this. Okay, here they talk about the animation renaissance and how it fits into the plans for Star Trek. Okay,
the animation is in an incredible, glorious renaissance moment right now.
Yeah.
You know, it's between Spider-Verse, which just blew everything open, and everything Pixar's been doing for so very long. I think what I'm excited about in the world of animation is to try all these different things and to see what feels Trek. That's the other thing. It's not just the shows. We have the short treks too. We're doing 6 more of them.
And those are great, especially the one with Doug.
Thank you.
Oh no!
We're doing 6 more. 2 of them are animated, and the 2 that we're doing that are animated are unlike our 2 animated shows. So what I love about the short treks is that they are. To me, it's an experimental training ground, and also just a place to experiment with different things. Directors who we've never worked with before, tones we've never tried before. And Michael Giacchino is doing one of the animated shorts. Wow. And Olatunde Sanmi is doing another one of the animated shorts, and he's our main director on Discovery. And again, different animation styles, totally different tone. Aimed at kids, I would say, more than adults, those 2. Yes, so that
fuck. All right. So anyway, 2 of the short treks are going to be animated.
What happened to the ones connected to season 2 of Star Trek Discovery that they announced on their own show on CBS All Access on their in the Ready Room about 3 or 4 months ago when they talked about these short treks?
I say, didn't they just announce 1 or 2 or whatever or at least one that's going to have to do with Spock and number 1?
Yeah, I think because they announced these months ago. So again, there's no new information. Probably the count. They said that we were going to get like 5 more. but now we're getting 6 or 7. And yeah, 2 were supposed to be connected to Star Trek Discovery season 2, but maybe I heard it wrong, but I could have sworn it was supposed to happen during the season.
I don't think you heard it wrong. I think
I think it was too.
I think they just changed gears and just, oh yeah, never mind what we said, and this is our story, and we're sticking to it.
Yeah, you notice they bring up a lot of Kurtzman always brings like the current thing. So Love, Death, and Robots and Into the Spider-Verse, and it just sounds like more of, hey, here's everything except for Star Trek we're going to try to get you to like Star Trek, and they're just going to copy stuff. The last episode of season 2 was such a mess of. Oh my God. It was so funny watching Red Letter Media try to review season 2 because they really couldn't.
Well, what happened in season 2? A whole bunch of gibberish and nothing and explosions, right?
I don't even really remember what happened in season 2. That's how bad it was.
It was more convoluted than Lorca's fucking plan in the first season.
Orchestration.
Yeah.
So I am trying to do a season 2 video right now. And it like Mahler style, I told him I'm totally going to copy him since he's not going to cover it. And it's going to be like 5 hours long. I don't know if I can do it. It's so freaking long. There's so many dumb things in one episode. It's impossible to keep track of. I need one of those crazy person rooms with the strings and the thumbtacks.
I tried to do that for season 1 and I got and I even had help and I had somebody helping me write it, and we gave up because there's just too much. You just can't finish this in a lifetime to point out absolutely everything that's wrong. With any, just one episode. I tried to do it. I'm like, I just don't have the time, and I'm just going to go nuts.
Yeah.
Well, we haven't heard from Big Sexy yet. I mean, what's your take on this, man?
Again, someone said he's doing so many things that are popular now. And for the record, I didn't like Into the Spider-Verse, but he's doing so many things that are popular now. Oh yeah, I said it.
Rob, we found another person.
We found another one. That makes 3.
He's doing everything to drive people to Star Trek, but he's not doing anything that is intrinsic to Star Trek, and that ain't gonna work.
And you know what? Actually, I'm writing a rant now, and the same thing is happening with James Bond. Is that they are trying to make James Bond like all these other things. They're trying to make it like Bourne. They're trying to make it like Marvel. I'm like, no, James Bond is James Bond. It doesn't have to be like these other things. Why are you trying to make it like something else? Let it be its own thing. But that's what's going on now. It's like, oh well, they take a look at what's popular. We have to make it like this.
Now, I'm listening. I'm doing a George R. R. Martin video right now and listening to the podcast he recorded on. God, I wish I had this sound to put next to Alex Kurtzman, because within this interview, George R. R. Martin says when he was taking on the Twilight Zone, he's all, the guy who produced the Twilight Zone in the 80s got it right. He distinctly look for science fiction writers. And then George says it. He's all, you can't, back then there was a tendency to just throw soap opera and TV writers on everything. And that's why so many things didn't work. And the Twilight Zone, which was way ahead of its time in the 80s, found science fiction short story writers, found everyone they could to bring them in. Didn't matter what they look like, really. And that's why, I know it got canceled, but I thought it was a very good series. And that's the biggest problem we have here is we have soap opera writers. We have all these showrunners being fired, and we've gone over this with Star Trek Discovery. But if you look at the writer's room, Byo-Young Kim and stuff, they've been there from day one, and they've only written one show for the CW. So, you're changing everything at the top, but you're still getting the same writer. So you're not going to get anything different, but that's
we've noticed this whole thing across the board where a lot of unqualified people are getting jobs they shouldn't be. It used to be paid you do. Gilmore Girl level writers, or look at what's, Michelle Rejwan or Rejwan or however you say her name, JJ's assistant that got inserted over there basically doing Kathy's job. I mean, what is left for Kathy to do? Get the coffee like she used to? I don't know.
I heard she couldn't even do that, right? Well, that's what Kurtzman used to do for Sam Raimi.
He was here they come.
That's not sound effect, folks. That's actually real. They come
Yeah,
in.
that's actually right outside my window. All right. Let's move on. This next clip.
We don't have Gary for very long, so move along.
Yeah. This next clip is talking about the CBS plans for spin-offs. Okay, this is about 32 seconds long. Okay, so let's play out.
Yes, so that was David Staff who made that comment, and absolutely, the plan is multiple shows, and there are multiple shows in development right now. The thing about the shows is you have to understand that it takes really a year from writing to finished product. It's sort of like animation because you got to factor in about 7 months of CG work and then 4 months of prep, especially if you're building sets for a new show for the first time. It's a massive endeavor. It's huge. It takes 4 to 5 months to build the sets.
So he's really not saying anything. He's literally admitting that they write the show around the CG and around the sets they have.
Yep.
Well, wasn't that one of the things that we talked about in one of our recent videos was how Netflix basically got pissed that they got used to, how did we put it in the video, Rob? Where they basically paid for not only just, they didn't just pay for the first season, but they paid for the show in general.
Yeah.
That last statement was a perfect illustration of someone, like it was mentioned earlier, doing something to set up himself for work down the line, little job security. I want to do 5 shows. Really? How about getting one show the fuck right? Let's do that first. Then go.
Right. What's funny about this Big Sexy is, like, as Midnight's Edge, we get, constantly bombarded with people about our reporting and how we report things, and Kurtzman's not fired and all this stuff, and he's got all these things happening. I still wonder where the hell that Sinister Six movie is, or where's the Dark Universe? I'm still waiting.
Bride of Frankenstein was supposed to be the next movie, and it actually had a Bill Condon, had a good director attached to it, and it's still on his IMDb.
Angelina Jolie was attached, wasn't she?
Yep.
Yeah, we had that whole photo with everybody from like Johnny Depp to, yeah. God.
It's a modus operandi. It's he gets there, he plants himself in, and JJ does this too. JJ, Mecca was just bringing it. It sounds exactly like JJ. I'm going to start a bunch of ideas and move on, and just leave people where I'm at to cede control. And the problem is this just can't last long. And when people question me about that, I just go, use your common sense. You compare it to something else comparable. So DC streaming, it's a streaming service. They put up some very expensive shows. Of course, they aren't admitting that they're going to roll this into the WB streaming service. It's all wine and roses right now, but they just canceled Swamp Thing, which was cheaper than Star Trek Discovery and better, much better. And they cut that thing off at the knees, right? Like before they could finish the show, because they, it's a redundancy. DC streaming is a redundancy now, and they don't need it. If the Viacom merger happens, there will be redundancies all over the place, and they will get rid of what they don't need to get rid of. And honestly, the crappy thing about this is if this doesn't work for Trek, you can't just turn that around. There's going to be a cooling off period, and maybe we see it in 5 years, maybe we see it in 10, who knows? But this is it. Like, this is it. So I don't see this thing turning around. I don't see Picard turning around. And that's the crappy thing about it. That's what really sucks, is they're just digging in with this guy, and he's
here we go. We're getting more of the same. Here we are, roughly 4 to 6 episodes in on Picard, and they're announcing a new showrunner.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go again.
We've heard this before.
It's the same thing. All right. Well, let's move on to the next one. Now, in this one, he talks about the challenge of Mikey Spock. I heard that.
Let's open that can.
Let's open this can of worms. Okay. The challenge of Mikey Spock.
But you have to take bold swings. And so in the case of Michael, making her Spock's half sister was suddenly a big deal, because obviously we knew the fans were going to go, what are you talking about?
She's not his half sister.
To me, that was an amazing challenge. I was like, well, the answer to that is a full season of television. The answer to that is not one episode. It is what happened between them. What's the nuance? How are they apart? How do they come back together? And I've said it many times, I'm a huge sucker for sibling stories. So the idea of getting to tell, they're so unique and they're so specific. Sibling relationships are so specific, and you know each other in a way that nobody else in the world knows you, and you share a common experience that no one else shares. And the idea that Spock would have chosen to keep his sister's identity secret, not only to protect her, but to protect the universe and the future of all mankind and humankind, felt like a great reason for said anything that synced up. Then there goes the task of many people in the room saying, who was Spock in TOS? Why did he smile at the beginning of those episodes? And how come he's not smiling now? And how do we sync up to all the things that happen in canon that fans still talk about? So that stuff is really a fun challenge, I think. So now we're saying, okay.
Oh, for God's sake.
Was there more to it? As I said, the flood of
No, that bleeds over to the next.
As I blast it out there, I'm sorry, folks. I apologize. She was not Spock's half sister. I remember I had to keep saying this to Andre, and then he said, "No, I'm not saying it. This is the quote." I was like, "Okay," because it's adopted. He's like, "I know. They don't. These are the people making the show."
Right. Yep. Well, they can't keep track of their own canon. I mean, God, there's an interview that in the Ready Room interview, the woman interviewing Heather Caden and Alex Kurtzman asks him a very specific question. There's the cam footage from the World War when the Red Angel saves all those people from World War III and brings the entire church full of people with her suit somehow to another planet 50,000 light years away or whatever, and in time.
You mean the Riri Williams moment? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. She asks him, she's all, so we're going to get any context to that? We're going to see World War III, and he's all, it'll all be answered at the end. And they, of course, didn't answer it at all.
Nope.
Like,
they left a lot of shit open.
Yeah. So the guy is, he talks in circles, and I'm sure you're going to get to it. He's asked specific questions that he doesn't answer. And these are, by the way, all the answers basically he's given before, like it's a script.
Well, and let's face it, this is the kind of shit that happens when you change showrunner 2-3 times in the middle of a show.
Yep.
Big Sexy, you have anything to add to this? And then Mecca, I don't think he chimed in yet either.
Again, he's just setting himself up, for job security. Oh, it can't take place in one episode. It's got to take place over a whole season. Fuck out of here with that, man. The guy is just taking a beloved property and shitting all over it. It's all about his ego as opposed to being about telling a good story. And again, I don't know if Q told you guys this, but they lost me on the second season. I got about 2/3 of the way through. I'm like, you know what? I'm out.
Yeah,
so
I think I'll kind of turn to the dark side.
Well, we got a couple of super chats to catch up to. Destiny Captain, 99-cent super chat. So thank you very much, sir. Well, no comment, but thank you very much. DCV Titan, $10 Canadian super chat. Is the challenge of Mikey Spock is that a person can only take so much blunt force trauma to the head, and there's a limited number of writers in the world? Yeah, apparently. Mech 1164, $5 super chat. Kurtzman wouldn't know unique even if it bit him in the dilithium crystals. Yeah,
pretty much. Big section.
Gary,
add there before we move on to
Gary? Correct me if I'm wrong on this one. Didn't they being the creative team of, I think, Brian Fuller at the time or Alex Kurtzman, say that they would not be bringing Spock into the series?
Yes, they did.
They all said it. Akiva Goldsman said they all said it.
Absolutely. I've made a couple of videos on it. Yep, absolutely. They're like, no, we'll never go with Spock. Oh, well, you'll never see the Enterprise.
Yeah, I'll come back to this. Big Sexy. I don't think you were finished before. Was there something else?
No, I got it out, man, because the guy's just out of control.
Yeah. I would just say, Gary, are you a fan of Community?
I have not watched it.
Okay,
well,
there's
a fan or not.
Okay, there's an episode called Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas, which is done like a Rankin Bass Christmas special with the claymation, the stop motion claymation. Anyway, he gets to Santa's workshop and he's supposed to find the meaning of Christmas, and it's a solitary package in the middle of the workshop. He opens it and he says, "What is it?" It's the first season of Lost. It represents lack of payoff. How appropriate is that?
Yes.
For everything that J.J. Abrams and Alex Kurtzman have done.
Yeah, and speaking of JJ and getting back to the thing that was just said by Gary and Mecca about Spock, the reason they probably said that is they have to go to Paramount and get permission. And that's where everybody's like, well, there's no license thing. There's no license issue. Then why did Shatner say that CBS would have to go to Paramount to get permission to use Kirk if they wanted to do a Kirk series?
Mm-hmm.
Because of that separation there. Because at this moment in time, that license is still there, and they own the rights, or not owns, but they have the licenses right now to all the original Star Trek characters. So to get Spock into this show, they had to get permission or work their magic through Bad Robot. So Bad Robot's still there. Now, here's the thing. A lot of stuff gets jumbled in our reporting, and people are stating, it's like, okay, Bad Robot may not necessarily be involved, but don't think Kurtzman is not JJ's little plant, and that's not the compromise. That's what I'm trying to get across to a lot of people, is there was a compromise made, or somebody threatened some kind of lawsuit, because that's one thing we can't get an answer on. To anybody we've talked to that's been willing to talk to us, the one thing they will not comment on is what happened to push Brian Fuller out and bring Kurtzman in. That's the one thing I cannot get a solid answer on. And that, to me, that's the one thing that clinches whether or not there is this whole license issue, which we do know that it does play a part. But how big of a part is the question? So anyway, let's move on to the next.
Real quick, it's even brought up in an article I was going over in my last video, where they talked about they couldn't produce a Star Trek show during the 50th anniversary because they had to wait a certain amount of time because of the license with Paramount. So I'm sure you've seen that before. So that's why they were late, and it would have been late anyway, but that's why they had to delay it.
There was in effect a non compete clause.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right, and that's what people keep forgetting, and that's where I think something was worked out. But anyway, let's move on.
Let's move on to the next clip, okay? Because I'm gonna want to shoot myself before this is over. This is Alex Kurtzman on a cinematic approach for this series. Okay, about 45 seconds.
So now we're saying, okay, we're gonna bring that approach to television. Every director needs to come in with their A game, prepared. Know their shots on the day, know why the shots are there, know where the eye is going. We talk to the DPs all the time about, the look that you're talking about, the look on the bridge. That is an incredibly meticulously crafted look where we say, okay, let's talk about where the light's coming from. Let's talk about high contrast. Please don't be afraid of the darks. I really love the darks. It feels more cinematic when you lean into high contrast, and yet don't be so dark that I can't see faces, because when you lose the light in the actor's eyes, you lose half the performance. And so all of these things are very daily conversations that we're having with our directors and making sure that they are bringing those kinds of approaches to it.
Maybe you should be having other conversations with your directors.
Right?
There's no light. There's no light in the entire series. What's he talking about?
Oh, he likes the contrast of what? The shining the fucking lens flare in your eyes as opposed to the dark? Because that's all it is. It's just a lens flare in your eye and then dark.
Can I tell Kurtzman something vicariously? I know he's probably not listening, but hey, let me tell you something. Directors don't give a shit what you think. Don't tell them how to do their fucking jobs. Okay?
Right? And if he's hiring people that are so inept that they don't know what they're doing the day they come in, why is he hiring these people as directors?
Well, that's just that they're not inept directors for the most part. And they're doing the best they can with what they got. I guarantee you that's what this is.
Yeah, he's probably coming in and telling them last minute, oh no, we have to do this. We have this shot coming in. And I can see I can fill in so many blanks with like the little reports we hear versus, like the altercation Anson Mount had with a director or somebody where, oh no, he didn't hit him, but HR was called. So
and why isn't he in the upcoming short trek?
Yeah, and why isn't he in the new short treks? Why aren't they giving people a Captain Pike spinoff? Even people who hate Discovery like us want a Captain Pike spinoff.
Mm-hmm. That should have been the show, actually. That should have been the show.
Exactly.
And it has nothing to do with the fact that he's a white male. That has nothing to do with it. It has to do with the fact that he's the only character that was written with any kind of fucking
personality, character arc,
likability. believability.
And a lot of that's the actor. A lot of that is Anson Mount bringing a lot to the table in his performance.
All right.
Absolutely, because I said the same thing during Inhumans. I'm like, this show is garbage, but Anson Mount is doing the best he can without even doing any dialogue.
Okay. Well,
yeah, big sexy. Gary, did you have anything to add to that? Big sexy.
Yeah, I got something to add. And I hate to really catch all of you off guard, but are we in the idea or the business of breaking news here?
Oh, we can.
Oh, yeah. We can break it. Yeah.
All right. I've just been.
Let me. I've got a special sound for that. Okay, hold on. We have breaking news. When news breaks, we fix it. Okay. What's the breaking news?
I have just been sent a message that Walking Dead, the comic book, is going to end this week with number 193. This will be the final issue. It was not solicited as a final issue. This is it.
Wow.
And this is it.
That's really odd, unless they knew it was coming the whole time. But to dump that, is it being? It's coming out this week, so that doesn't give any of the retailers time to order up or anything. So that's weird.
Was it selling that bad?
It couldn't have been. It's Walking Dead. It's still consistent selling.
But that's the thing. We're in a day and age where the biggest selling comic book doesn't have to sell much to be the biggest selling comic book either. You should know that, Gary.
No, it doesn't. That's
the story has gotten stagnant, and I was going to jump off at 200 anyway.
I was going to say, how bad have the sales dropped off? I mean, does anybody pay attention there?
But oh man, I'm wondering if retail. I got to look at the details, but usually they would do that 2 weeks out at least at the final, because there's a thing called final order cutoff, where you can go in and adjust your ordering last minute before they ship it out. So this catches all the retailers off guard, unless they gave them some inside knowledge or anything. But it doesn't look like it. Weird.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's something for you to look into, Gary. I know you got some more connections in that area for sure.
All right. Well, we have a $5 super chat from Cold Fusion Waffles. Always Cold Fusion Waffles. Correct me if I'm wrong, but everything in STD was stolen from Mikey, being the equivalent to a counterfeit Spock to stealing from an indie game developer. Yes.
Everything that Kurtzman does is a recycling of something else.
Anti-Trekker does a great video about that. Actually, go check out his channel. I can't remember what the title was, but Anti-Trekker does show you all the stuff he's ripped off.
Yep.
All right, let's hit on to the next one. This is going to be a good one, guys. This is Alex Kurtzman talking about falling in love with Trek. It's about 50 seconds long. Laugh if you must. Here he is talking about falling in love with Star Trek.
When we started doing the film, I began to fall in love with it. That was the beginning of a long phase of it. But I really didn't feel ownership of it on any level then. I really felt like I was a participating member of a group in which everybody was playing a different instrument, and certain of band members were playing louder than others. You know, Bob and Damon were playing louder than I was because they knew Trek much more deeply, much more.
He's referring to Roberto Orci. So that's who
and
Bob
Damon
is.
Lindelof.
And David Lindelof. Yeah. So let's continue.
More thoroughly than I did. JJ and I think, had probably more similar interests because we were, frankly, more Star Wars people. But now I've really swung in the other direction, and so it's interesting. I think when we did the 2009 movie, the fact that everybody brought such different things to the table was really valuable to the franchise in ways that we weren't even that conscious of at the time. The fan.
Okay. Well,
he said it all. He said it all. Well, I'm not really a Star Trek fan. Fuck you.
Yep, exactly. I didn't like Star Trek. Well, maybe you shouldn't be making it. Maybe if you didn't like it, you shouldn't be making it.
And that's who they want to appeal to, though. You don't know how many times I see on Twitter and Facebook, I'm not a fan of X property, but. Well, if you weren't a fan before, what makes me think you're going to be a fan now?
Okay, well, in his defense, I will say, look at Nicholas Meyer, somebody we've actually talked to. He was not a Star Trek fan before he made Wrath of Khan. But the difference was this. Nicholas Meyer was fucking talented. Yeah, there's a difference.
Yes.
Kurtzman has yet to show that he has any fucking stitch of talent in his body, because everything he's done turns to shit. So we have
Chief Cook, $4.99 super chat. Thank you very much, sir. Just reboot TNG. Start what happened after Star Trek 6. Have the old crew work with new work. Save the Galaxy, Enterprise B, or no D. Okay. All right. Gary, anything on that?
Jerry's camo 91Z gave us $1.99, said love y'all. But Gary, yeah, because I know you don't have too much more time here. So
I'm just looking over his IMDb, and he's pretty entrenched at CBS. I wasn't aware he was an executive producer at Hawaii Five-0. So but like Sleepy Hollow, Limitless, Matador, Amazing Spider-Man 2, produced Ender's Game, Transformers, Fringe might have been the only thing connected that was halfway decent. Yeah, I it's unbelievable that this guy continues to get work, and it's just proof you fail upwards in Hollywood all the time. Even Sleepy Hollow, I watched that series that I kind of liked the first season, but then it went to crap. I didn't watch The Mummy, but I heard it was really, really bad. But I
still haven't watched that yet.
Lots of style, little substance.
Yeah, and that's what's selling these days. You know, even Mecca said it. This stuff is made for people who aren't paying attention. Look at it's almost like the hit music nowadays. They have to like put in hooks. There used to be like 4 or 5 hooks in a song, and now there's like 20, and that's what they do. They have a hook explosion every certain amount of time, and we're just going to write the script around that, and then that's what's happening. And I can't wait to see season 3 if it even happens. But there's the ad right there. I'm back. Jean-Luc Picard returns to Star Trek.
Well, they're casting. They are casting season 3. They're looking for that. What was it? A non-binary, whatever, something person now. Ugh.
Oh, so they can do the battle of non-binary stars. Yeah, that could be a sequel to the first or second episode. Yeah.
On that premise, I'm going to be very careful here. There is a character on the show Billions, Taylor, who falls into that category, and they never made it a selling point. When they introduced that character, that character walked in and said, "Look, my name is Taylor. My pronouns are this, 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 and this. And let's keep it moving." And even though they have become an adversary toward the lead characters, no one has gotten off that respect. So they're not beating our heads, beating it over. I can't even get it out. Beating us over the head with it. So when I don't like it.
I just keep thinking of Family Guy now. When Brian was making the apology, I identify as a basketball. I mean, what's next?
Yeah, it's if you enter like Big Sexy just said. If you just here it is in the show, it's a thing, and it's not something we talked up. That's Berlanti was doing that at Comic-Con. Oh my God, he was like, "There's the first gay character in this show," and it got to thunderous silence. By the way, every time he did that in Hall H.
We talked about that actually a couple nights ago.
We bring it up a few times, yeah, and we equate it to is the old circuses where they used to pull out the freak show.
Yep.
To us, it's we wish all the gay and lesbian actors and of different races would see this, that they're basically being pulled out and being the token whatever for them to parade around just like a freak in the old freak show days and say, "Look at this is what we got," come to the show.
PT Barnum, they're parading them out like their own, like they're PT Barnum in their own sideshow. Yeah.
And it made the news that Cena Grace, who was writing Iceman for a while, finally came out and figured this out. And when he got fired from Marvel,
he got fired.
He got let go, didn't get retained. We'll just say that we fixed the glitch. We just stopped paying him. And he came out and said Marvel was a bunch of cowards, and he realized that they just hired him to be gay and write, not to write, but to be gay and right. And that's exactly what's going on right now. And, people are starting to figure it out. It's or come to terms with it. I mean, I think they know, but that's got to feel crappy. That's got to feel real crappy to know that you're hired for this instead of your talent.
Okay, but I'm gonna set the building on fire. So
yeah, my stapler.
They
took my stapler again.
All right. So anyway, let's. Do we have any more to say about this, or can we move on to the next?
One more thing.
Sure.
When Kurtzman, was saying how, I never liked, Star Trek. That is indicative of a lot of directing people or showrunners coming onto a property, and instead of accepting it for what it is and what we all like about it, they'll come in and say, well, I'm going to change direction. I'm going to give you my view of it, and my view is X, which is completely different than what we all know. And that's what he's fucking doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And like I said, and again, you can actually make the comparison to James Bond too. Now everybody wants to come in, they want to change James Bond, they want to make it woke, they want to make it Marvel, they want to make it Bourne. I'm like, no, it's James Bond.
You know how you don't need to date a character? Watch Superman the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, now, but they updated Superman for the 70s. And what they did was they didn't change Superman. They changed the world around him and how he reacted to it.
Mm-hmm. Or if you want a modern example, Captain America.
And Captain America's a good one. But I mean that because they made Lois a very a feminist of the time. She's a very independent woman, very open about her sexuality. The whole world around him is not that chipper 1930s to 1950s kind of comic book world. There's a lot of jerks out there. There's, his boss is, yelling at him all the time. And he's, Clark is the same old Clark and Superman's the same old Superman, but everything else is different. You got to adapt to everything else. But like somebody said in the comments earlier, and I didn't get to it because we got past it. It's like Kurtzman copied everything when it came to Star Trek, except for Star Trek. And we've said that too.
Yeah. So anyway, okay, let's move on to the next one, because this is one talking about the relationship with the fans. And Gary, I heard you talking about this on one of your recent videos. This is about a 47-second clip. Let's let this run. Okay. And hear what he has to say.
The fans' point of view has become necessary for me because the fans have kept Trek alive for 53 years. And the internet has now made it possible for me to know in real time how people are receiving our choices. And as you're writing, you can subtly course correct. There's a lot of opinion, right? I've sort of come to the realization that if you're at a 50-50 split, you're doing well. It's when you're at 90-10 that you're in real trouble. You know what I mean? Because the nature of Trek is such that people take opposite sides of it. They engage in a debate that I think is part of the vitality of Star Trek. So I get that, and I've come to see that for what it is, as opposed to taking it personally.
That's wise.
Because it's very easy to take personally.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but 50% is a failing grade,
and it is personal. It's his fault. You should take
the Ryan Johnson thing, yeah.
That's horrible. I don't know how that's acceptable to any business, that we're going to give up on half of our audience. And the split and what he's referring to is people liking Next Generation over the original series. We're not talking about stuffing our show full of agenda, making it female centric, and really just trying to make it un-Star Trek as possible. And Star Trek was always a vision of hope for the future, and I don't think he's capable of doing that. I think a lot of writers now are just too jaded in Hollywood, and they need to find drama in the cheapest way possible. That's why he loves siblings. Yeah, it's very Greek to always have siblings fighting or bad fathers, and there's plenty of that in Star Trek Discovery. And yeah, he's just not capable of making He's not capable of making Star Trek. Period.
Not only that, he's making excuses for channels like ours.
Oh, yeah.
And making excuses for the critics. Legit critics, And he's vindicating this, or he's
trying to justify his existence.
Well, he's justifying, and that's not even the word I'm looking for, but he's justifying the fan split. in a way to me, and it's not a good thing. There's never been this much discourse within all fandoms, let alone Star Trek.
Mhm.
No, we used to just debate. We would debate like what's oh why did the Klingons look like this? Well, they put it here and that's why. And they're like, oh, okay. And then it would never be yes, but you're wrong because and it was a lot more polite. It was a lot more like debates on who do you like more? Do you like Cisco? Do you like Kirk? Do you like Picard? It was a lot of that stuff. It was never this bad. It was never, doxing and trying to deplatform and stuff like it is now anyway.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
No, I just said threats of violence. And it's because of the political discord in it. It's not the normal Star Trek discord, which is again, why? Yeah, because the conversation would be, why do the Klingons look like that? That's the first thing that hit my brain before I even started seeing the political agenda within the show. Was like, why? I mean, why would you go that route? And why does it look so much more like JJ's Klingons than, And how are they going to explain that in Picard when, we have an active Klingon character, who was the main part of the Next Generation? And yeah, what if there's we know there won't be, but what if there's a Worf cameo? What's Worf going to look like? Is he going to look like the JJ Klingons or the Star Trek Discovery Klingons? Like, how is this going to work out? And it's just crap. That's all it is,
We're not going to get anybody with Picard. Maybe B4, but that's it. And
from what I heard,
go ahead, Rob.
From what I don't know who I heard this from, but from what I heard is that they only have the license to use Picard, not anyone else from the rest of the bridge crew. So that's why they have to surround him with a brand new crew. So from what I've read, actually, I don't remember. I'm not sure who I read this, where I read this, who said this. Maybe it was you, Gary. Maybe it was someone else. But if you're looking for a Data cameo, you're looking for Data. You're looking for Riker to show up. You're looking for Beverly Crusher. You're looking for Deanna Troi. You're looking for Geordi LaForge. Forget about it. They only have the license to use Picard.
I got one thing to add, and then I'm going to open the floor again to Gary and Big Sexy, because I know Gary's got to go here real soon, if not already. He's been so generous with his time as it is. But basically, the way I'm seeing this is, and I'm going to fuck up trying to explain this, but all of the things that he's picking at there and they're using to justify the existence of everything they're doing are things that were fuck ups to begin with, and they've had to fix later on. And now they're using those fixes as excuses to do something stupid. Does that make sense? Like the whole Spock smiling thing. It was never meant to be there. And until they used that unused pilot episode, it never was there.
And did you hear that their excuse for that? Did you break that down to everybody out there? The reason Spock is stoic afterwards. Okay, so the reason of the character, obviously before Leonard Nimoy was trying to work out the character, right? And then he finally figured it out and played Spock. I can't remember if it was 4 or 5 episodes in, but they used that time, that little hole in time, to explain that Spock is stoic and less emotional because of his interaction with Michael Burnham in Star Trek Discovery Season 2. So if you listen back early in the interview, that's how he explains it. It made my brain explode. I was like, what?
She taught him how to be a better Vulcan.
Yeah, I'm sure if Rob didn't cut that out, I'm going to kick him in the ass, but I'm sure that's going to be coming up here in our clips.
Yeah, that's just, oh my God. Sorry, but that's.
Oh no, that's dead exactly on what I'm talking about. That is exactly what I'm talking about. They're taking things that were never meant to be there in the first place, and using them to justify this abomination. And it's like, no, you don't get it. They were mistakes. They were not meant to be that way. Or things that, like the Klingons, they decided to go. They changed them later because they could do something cooler now compared to what they could do in a week to make a television show. Now they're making a major motion picture. Of course, you want to make the Klingons look really cool. So you come up with a reason for that. Whatever it was in TNG, I think it was, that they explained what was going on there with why they didn't have the ridges on their heads in the original series. If I remember.
Yeah, that was in DS9. Yeah, where
DS9, that's what it was. Sorry, that's why I wasn't sure if it was TS.
they don't talk about it, but they are Klingons. Yeah,
And like, we got to ask the question, if they wanted to make the Michael Burnham thing work, why not mention Cybok at all? I mean, because you could have referenced that if people were having a hard time with the adopted half sister. Well, mention the half brother then. Why didn't you mention the half brother? I mean, in passing, in secret, at all, because it would help bolster your argument. So that's curious, to say the least. There's lots of very curious things that they leave out. Okay. Jonathan Frakes is directing a block of episodes for Picard. He's right there in the building. Why not have him on screen as a cameo, like a Liam Neeson cameo in The Orville or something? Why not? He's right there.
exactly. Have him call in on a screen saying, "How are you? How are you? I haven't seen you. What happened since you left?" Just something.
There's no excuse for that. There's absolutely none, but they just don't talk about it, and nobody asks that question either from the other side.
And they do this on, like, they did this on Stargate when we launched Atlantis. You had Stargate characters, and when they launched Universe, they had Atlantis, and I think they had Atlantis. I believe it was probably McKay or Dr. Jackson. One of those characters were on Universe doing that job. You had crossover because they're in the same universe.
Every Star Trek spinoff had a cameo from another character, like every single one. So
Voyager launched from Deep Space Nine. I mean, Worf and O'Brien went to Deep Space Nine. Oh, it's so frustrating.
Scotty in the episode Relics.
Yeah,
if you want to go there.
Bones. Sarek.
The very first episode. Sarek. Exactly. Chief O'Brien you'd see on just about every series.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, okay. Anybody, Big Sexy, anything to add to that? Or?
Yeah, did you have anything to add, Big Sexy, to that?
No, you guys have covered it all on this one.
Gary, did you have go, or do you still have a few minutes?
No, I got a few more minutes. I'll hang out.
Awesome.
All right, well, just check. Captain Hare, $5 super chat. So you guys are on a regular schedule screwing with me. Have they announced Kurtzman acting debut in Picard series as Redshirt? We can only hope. Okay, no, I'm not sure if I have that actually about the Mikey Spock thing, but this one's actually about finding the allegory. This is about 1:11. This is about them, how we relate to the how the stories relate to modern events in modern day. Okay, so let's take a listen to this.
We always are looking to find the allegory, a modern allegory. The part of why Trek has stayed relevant for so long is because it's been a mirror to the moment. And it's taken whatever the moment is, and it's reflected through some allegorical story. And we do that all the time. So we're constantly talking about what is the zeitgeist in the world? What are people wrestling with? Obviously, Trek, in some ways, I think is more relevant now than ever. And it's always been relevant, but it's more relevant now than ever because our world is so divided and so divisive. And the premise of the Federation is that somehow we've gotten past all of these things that divide us. And we've figured out a way, and it took a world war, a nuclear cataclysm, for us to realize we better stop behaving the way we behave. We've nearly destroyed ourselves and our planet in the process. And how are we going to come together now? So, Trek posits a future where we've moved past those things, where we're able to come together, but it allows us to tell modern stories in a way that's more parable than hitting you over the head with something obvious. And we're always walking that line. So season 3 is all about that. Season 2 was about that to some degree too.
That's all the show does, is hit you over the head.
What is he talking about? They'll call me mother.
Come hear Howard Stern whenever someone says something, they play that sound like bah, 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 bah. When somebody doesn't make any sense. He doesn't make any freaking sense.
Big Sexy, did you get anything out of that? I tuned out after a few minutes.
The only thing I got out of that was this guy is pretty much trying to ape the Star Trek premise that he's pretty much ignoring. He's saying that as lip service, but he's doing his own thing. Fuck him.
Yep.
Well, anyway, two more super chats. Let's get those really quick. Cold Fusion Waffles, $5 super chat. Ka-ching. So, wasn't there a joke? Klingons got their butt kicked so often they evolved to have their spine shoved up their foreheads. I like that. It's good. And Namco's £5 super chat. Do I need to play Rupa Chaney for that one instead? So Spock, technically you are correct. I do not have a brother. I have a half brother. Paraphrase Star Trek 5. Yeah. Captain Harrod's $2 super chat. Well, keep them coming, guys. New idea: Kurtzman versus the Gorn on Cestus 3. Oh, that'll make a great pay-per-view special. It really would.
Well, as he mentions, though, they are working on season 3, according to him, which is news to some people outside of. We just finally heard about the whole casting thing we brought up earlier with the non-binary character. In this interview, I don't know if Rob clipped that bit out, but he does say that they are 5 episodes and writing-wise on Discovery.
Yeah, that's at the beginning of the. That's at the beginning of the interview. I didn't clip.
When are they going to turn around and announce the show's actually going to show? Because they should be filming already if this is supposed to hit their normal release date. But we know Picard is in its place, basically. So does this mean it's going to get pushed off another half season?
Who knows? Who knows? Like I said, they're going all in on Picard. That's all we know right now.
Well, I don't think they say. We do know that they're casting right now for season 3 of Discovery. But.
He insinuates in the interview that they've got the 5th script written, and we're way ahead of what we were before. And it's almost like he's answering all of our accusations tit for tat. You know, he talks about the market, he talks about the licensing, toys, he talks about the timing. I've been on his ass about this. I've been like, you guys better be filming like right now, or you're not going to get we're not getting it, thank God, till 2021. Right. Earliest
interview that, you know, how long it takes to put one of these shows together in a season together, and the time for the special effects and all that kind of crap.
So that Trek year round is BS. That's not going to happen.
So I got that's actually coming up in a couple. That's about the Star Trek merchandise. But the next clip is about growing the fan base. Okay, so this ought to be hysterical.
When I went to CBS and I said, I think you have
you just muted yourself.
A fan base that I think is hungry for a lot more. And I walked them through the plan of what I saw for the next 5 to 10 years of Trek. Part of it was kind of premised on the idea that it was going to take time. What I said was, don't expect us to put the first thing out and suddenly, you have 100 million new fans.
In other words, don't fire me because I'm selling you on the idea that I need to be around for a long time to make this happen. That's what he's saying.
Yeah,
really.
Give me a shot. I didn't screw up that bad, because you can't get everybody to love me immediately.
All right, let's continue with this.
It's not going to happen. Trek's been around for too long for that to happen. But what we do have is new generations. And what I can tell you is that Trek, in general, finds people when they're about between 9 and 12. It's never reached younger than that. It's never tried to. And to me, that's a hugely missed opportunity, especially because what you're really trying to do is influence hearts and minds with really positive messages about who we can be as a species. And
all right, I want to stop. Hold on. Trek is reaching people 9 or 10. I was fucking 4 when I started watching it.
So this is the go on. Sorry, man. Didn't break up Rob's rant.
Fucking idiot!
Step back just a little bit, Rob.
What positive anything is on the show? They treat each other horribly. They start wars. The Klingon lady rapes a guy. Like, where is this positive? Dead baby heads. Dead Klingon baby heads. Oh, God.
Get this guy out of here. God.
Well, and what's funny is how, they keep walking shit back and forth, because it is for kids 1 minute, it's not for kids the next. It is for kids 1 minute, it's not the next. The part of the reason STD is the way it is because they were trying to make it more for adults. Am I wrong? And then you have the actress who plays Tilly out there going, "Oh, it's such a wonderful show for kids." And it's like, okay, I don't want my kid, if they were younger than, say, 5 or 6 or whatever, to be watching Star Trek Discovery. No chance.
No, they show full-on gore, half torn apart Klingons. Yes, it's not a kid.
Cannibalism.
Cannibalism, yeah. The ganglia. Oh, I forgot about the ganglia.
Don't forget about the Klingon rape.
Yeah, Mecca got that. Yeah, my kid's not watching this because he's not interested. Like he wouldn't give a two craps about this show. And yeah, like Rob, I started watching Star Trek when I was 4 or 5, watching it on KTLA Channel 5 in LA, with my little rabbit ears trying to get that in because they didn't have it on a channel in San Diego at the time. And yeah, it scared me a little bit, but I loved it. But Alex Kurtzman was watching it at his friend's house while it was on the TV. He wasn't really watching it. He noticed it on at his friend's house, but that was his first experience of Star Trek. And then his story changed later, and he said he got into it with Wrath of Khan, when he would have been like, he's younger than me. So he would have been 9 when he saw Wrath of Khan, which I highly doubt that he saw it in theaters. Yeah.
No, he saw it. He just saw the poster and I saw Wrath of Khan.
No, he saw the quote. He saw Khan.
Yeah, all these guys have just watched YouTube clips of like all the highlights, and that's it. Maybe some Midnight's Edge videos, who knows? But it's sad. It's sad that it's come to this. That and I'm not even I'll say it. I'm not a Trekkie or a Trekker. I'm a big Star Trek fan. I'm a fan of a lot of things. So I'm not like obsessively into Star Trek like Doomcock is. And, I can't name everything from it, but I certainly know more than Alex Kurtzman or any of the writers. And I caught that early. I hadn't watched when Star Trek Discovery aired and I was covering it. I hadn't watched a Star Trek anything in a couple years. And I'm like, why are the Klingons cloaking? That's not right. And yeah, people were going nuts in the chat. It's I just can't, let's let it happen. Let's let it unfold. Do all 5 of your shows, please. Guarantee me content for you know how hard it is to get guaranteed content for YouTube? And I'm set. Go for it, please.
Yeah, right.
just for me though, here's where Discovery lost me though. That very first episode when they had the telescope out and they had the communications relay, it had a gigantic hole blown through the side of it that was charred. It was burnt. It was it had a lot of damage. Now, if you saw that, what would you think happened? Anybody?
Something got shot and blown up.
So we took a shot at it.
Yeah.
They're sitting around. Mikey Spock and Star Wars saying, so what do you think? What do you think caused this? I'm like,
that's the writing room that does it. That's a writing room that's gone through multiple showrunners that doesn't pay attention or doesn't think the viewer pays attention. I think they brought it up in the Red Letter Media interview. They said they just hope you don't remember the last episode.
Mm-hmm.
And like Georgiou, she doesn't squint once. Not the entire second series. I mean, they're supposed to be light sensitive. They have the light sensitivity.
They just did that. They just put that line in there because we complained that the show was dark. That's just a retcon.
Probably, yeah.
Now, okay. Now, while we got Gary here, I'm going to skip ahead a couple of clips. Now he's going to talk about there not being any backlash to any of the movies. Now, this is hysterical.
I remember this part. Yep.
This is absolutely. First of all, Big Sexy, strap in. Ready?
Let's go.
Here we go. It's about 30 seconds long. I'm going to let the entire clip play.
Nobody, God, I can't tell you how often when we were breaking stuff, we're like, are we really going to blow up Vulcan? Like, people are going to lose their minds. We're going to have such rebellion from the fans. They're going to hate us. And nobody said anything about it. In fact, I think because it was so necessary to the telling of the story and because the blessing of that storyline came from Leonard himself, the fans understood that we were actually trying to honor. So I think what that taught me was shake it up, but make sure you're staying true to what people need to know and feel about Star Trek. Now, I think.
Oh, boy. This is mentally exhausting, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. I need a drink after listening to this guy.
It's like watching an episode of Star Trek Discovery.
I hate to sound like a vampire here or a ghoul, but isn't it convenient that he's invoking Leonard Nimoy now?
Oh yeah. Well, because
Uh-huh.
Leonard Nimoy's not around. Yeah, he's not around to say anything.
Exactly. This guy's so full of shit.
Yep.
Leonard was what? I didn't say that. You
I
don't.
have to punch him.
All I can say is all of us here, Big Sexy, Mecca, Rob, Tom, we have something Kurtzman does not: time. We have lots of time to wait and see if all of this stuff really happens. Yeah, Section 31 in 2022. Yeah, right.
No.
I'm looking. I just Googled into. You guys can do it too. Into Darkness backlash, and yeah, there's articles. There was definite.
Oh yeah.
If you really dig, you can find Robert Orsi's tweets to people who are giving him crap about Into Darkness and Star Trek Beyond, and his retorts to them, which might have. I don't know what got him fired, but he was killing fans on Twitter. Killing them. So maybe that had something to do with it. Not sure. But yeah, there was, I would say there was a backlash. Even Captain Robert April brought it up. They lied to fans. That entire year prior to Into Darkness, they told everybody that Cabbage Patch was not Khan. So, they have priors, we'll just say.
Well, we have a Rookie Critic $5 super chat from Rookie Critic. Hey guys, hail guys, hail Midnight's Edge, hail Gary. Gary sent you new lines for your speech, so you don't
thanks,
have to come
man.
Okay, all right. Well, anyway, I skipped ahead
after that too.
So let's
Waffles another $2 says, "Don't forget Sonar in Space." That was the thing.
Oh yeah, Sonar in Space. Okay, well, like I said, I wanted to play that one while Gary's here. He talks about the inner light. I don't know if we want to get into that one, but it's just a rambling of a guy who
I need to get into that one because that's the one that pissed me off.
We'll play that one because it comes across as a guy who it's almost like a bad it comes across like a bad cover band that knows the song but doesn't know how to play an instrument.
Right.
Let's try that one. Okay. He talks about the inner light. And this is about a minute 30. So buckle up here.
What you come to the reveal of the story and why the probe contacted him in the first place is that it's a species that died of a planetary collapse 1,000 years ago. And sort of the collective memory of these people has been embedded in this probe, and it's been looking for somebody to leave the memories with. So it's very Trek in that way. And so when it makes the connection with him, he finds himself living their lives, but at the end, all the people who died around him over all the years he lived are standing in front of him in this beautiful scene, and they say, we live on in you now. You get to carry us forward into the future. And you saw him, he couldn't play an instrument before the inner light, and then at the end of the episode, he wakes up and he has the ability to play the flute. And so it's so perfectly simple. It's a brilliant episode, and a fan favorite, if not the fan favorite of Next Gen, although everybody will tell you a different
not
Next Gen
yours.
favorite.
Oh, not yours.
But I think it represented too, and Patrick and I were just talking about it the other day, because there's no bridge story, there's no it really doesn't take place on the ship. There's a B story where they're cutting back to him in his coma, but that's not the story. And yet it's remembered as one of the greatest Next Gen episodes because it was pure character.
Yeah. No villain, no
villain.
gunfire.
Yeah. The villain was time. The villain was circumstance, and the villain was life. And again, the subtext is every moment matters.
First off, where do we start on this one? This is the one. I think I want you to send me this. I might need to take that. I was gonna make a video on this. I got too busy. The entire planet didn't give him the memories, right? The planet, it wasn't a planetary collapse. It dried out because the planet just dried out from the sun.
Someone's going to go to supernova.
The sun was going to, okay, yeah. So I was going to supernova. The planet wasn't collapsing, and he wasn't the entire memories of everybody wasn't in him. It was the memory of the one guy, and he lived that man's life as a record of how the whole people survived and how they lived and how they died, and that was, and the villain wasn't time in this episode. He almost had it right with there was no villain. It wasn't a villain. It was just life that happened to these people, and it wasn't a villain. But he almost had it right too, and that pisses me off so much. He almost got it right, and then he just didn't get it.
Unbelievable. How are you going to take one of the most popular stories and then just fuck it up in the retelling? This guy, again, he is just continuing to reinforce that it is my universe. What I say goes. I'm going to be here for a while. And someone should hit him in his fucking mouth. I volunteer.
You need someone to drive to LA?
I'm going to have to make a little quick southwest jaunt down there. Zip in, smack him, and zip out.
Oh, boy.
Cursory. That's his knowledge of Star Trek. It's even what the definition is. It's superficial without noticing details. Hasty. That's what this entire series both have been. Doing everything on the fly and just trying to keep the machine going so CBS All Access doesn't take the black eye of having to cancel a show. They must be in the hole. I had somebody popping up me on Twitter asking me to prove that Star Trek Discovery isn't profitable. Which, I mean, listen, I don't have access. Well, some to their stuff. I might have some access, but
They can't prove that it is, though, right?
No, there's no way it's making money. There's no way the streaming service is making money. All you have to do is, okay, let's go on their high estimate of subscribers, which was 8 million, and we'll go at $10 per subscriber.
No shot, no way.
That wouldn't cover a season of Star Trek Discovery. So, and they have other shows, and Twilight Zone and everything else. So.
I compared it to the budget of Game of Thrones, which is like even less than what Discovery is, isn't it? Gary, you would probably know better.
Discovery was comparable to Game of Thrones, and maybe not the last season. I don't.
No fucking way they got the audience that Game of Thrones had. No way.
I mean, maybe after, like we're talking monthly, by the way, what did I just hear? Netflix makes well over $1 billion a month, like $1.5 billion a month. And that's what CBS needs to be profitable, to make stockholders happy. And that's why they don't come out with numbers. I mean, like CBS could shut us all up today. Throw out the numbers, show the numbers, show us that it's successful, but they can't lie. They have to, if they came out with the numbers, they would have to be telling the truth because of the stockholders. So that's why all these companies keep it a secret, because none of these things are making money. I mean, Netflix is they borrow money based on their perceived value, based on their subscribers or anything, but they're not technically making money. Amazon might be making money when Apple starts. They're probably going to be in the hole too, but they got more money than God right now, so they have money to burn. Netflix, I just heard today on Robert Meyer Burnett's live stream that they're starting to buckle down now on series, and they're not going to be spending all willy-nilly like they were before, because as you guys know, the streaming wars are going to end before they begin. They will be over quick. Now everything's getting revved up. Once Disney gets going and WB, then that they will officially have started. Right now we got skirmishes, but we've already got a casualty, DC streaming. It's already gone. So, and not official yet, but it will be, trust me, probably by the end of the year. So yeah, there's just no way. None of this is making money. He is just making this crap up as he goes. And yeah, they have all the power because they can roll out Deadline and go to Comic-Con and go for it. Spend all the money you have to try to prove somebody wrong with $100 camera in a room surrounded by, like with Mecca, with DVDs and guitars and action figures. Do it. Come on.
Pretty much.
I dare them. I double dog dare you.
Yeah, and the market's not going to be able to sustain all these channels. We've talked about this a few times too, but again, yeah, they're all going to get soaked up into each other, and then there's going to be like 5 or 6, and then they're going to duke it out. And in the end, we're going to wind up with YouTube, Netflix, and Amazon. Pretty much what everybody has now, and Hulu maybe.
Yep, and they'll have to partner up with Amazon again and Netflix. That's why it's not good to burn your bridges.
This is the same thing that happened back when Marvel pulled out of previews and established Heroes World as its own distribution network. Then you had a bunch of the publishers scrambling to do their own thing. Lasted for about, a year and a half?
Yep.
Marvel came back home, and we're back to where we should be. So all these things that are popping up out of the woodwork, like you guys said, the marketplace cannot sustain multiple dozens of streaming services at $10 a month. It just can't work. Some of them have a partner.
It's a law of nature. When something, when colony civilization, when it gets too big to sustain itself, it collapses.
Well, and what's going to be the sad part is there's going to be a lot of great programming that a lot of people would love, and they're not going to be able to discover it, or by the time they discover it, it's going to be canceled.
Swamp Thing.
Yeah, well, and Cobra Kai. Look at that. I mean, I was so surprised to hear we were getting a third season, because we all know that this YouTube Premium thing isn't working out.
Nope.
No.
They need to embrace exactly what we've said before, and I'm sure Gary's brought this up a few times himself, and Mecca and stuff too. They need to just embrace the fact that they're free, and that they're ad driven, and that you can pretty much put whatever you want on there, and people will find it and watch it because it's free. And if you have something as good as Cobra Kai, people will watch it. I mean, I haven't seen how good their numbers are, and they actually show their views on YouTube. And I know that first episode of the second season, what was it at, Rob, the last we looked? Like 20 or 30 million views, something like that?
Oh, they were trying. There was one article. There was one article one day where they said Cobra Kai was like the #1 watched stream show, and then another article saying Discovery was.
Yeah, I brought that up. That's the paired analytics shit.
Yeah.
They're a bunch of horse shit. They're to sell shit to corporate boardrooms, basically. They'll write a story, you pay them enough, basically. That's the kind of shit. And Gary, was it you we were talking about this with, or somebody like, aren't some of these analytic companies under investigation for basically that, just being bullshit, being malarkey? I mean, if it wasn't,
there's one in the UK. Yes, and they're complete bullshit, because none of these companies are actually giving out. So they're going off what are they called again? Demand impressions. Yeah, and for one, Star Trek Discovery picked out that it's just one factor. If you go to the overall section, it's like SpongeBob is #1 and Game of Thrones is #1 when you bring in everything. I'm pretty damn sure that Game of Thrones just on HBO Now, or HBO Now, which is separate from having a subscription, was getting a lot more people watching than Star Trek Discovery. In 1 hour of Game of Thrones was probably more than the entirety of half a season of Star Trek Discovery. I've never heard numbers. The only number we've been able to see is the first episode was aired on CBS, and it got good ratings. But then what I hear from behind the paywall, it's pretty grim. So, but it got like 8 million people watching. When it aired.
How many of those 8 million people off when the show ends abruptly and you find out you got to pay to see the rest of it?
Yep. And I don't think too many people did, to be honest with you. I mean, the curiosity of Star Trek.
No, it was so bad. That first thing was so bad.
Sorry, Mecca. And nobody brings this up, though. The Super Bowl was a lead-in. Am I wrong?
Oh, that's right.
And how many DVRs were recording up to whatever time was the next? Didn't it start? What time did it start? I can't remember, but it was.
It started something like 10:30 or 9.
For season 1, it was there was a football lead-in, but it wasn't the Super Bowl. It was a football.
Oh, that's right. You're right, Gary. Still, but my point is nobody talks about that. They had how the DVRs work and how basically TV works in like that. If you get it, it matters more about that first 15 minutes than anything. After that, it doesn't matter as much as far as the ratings go. If Rob knows what I'm talking about, because I know he knows a thing or two.
When
about
Brother was available for free on YouTube, God, I know I screen capped it and I can't find it now, but I don't think it even hit 1 million. Did it hit 1 million?
No, it
Views?
didn't.
watching that, weren't you? You were keeping an eye on that too, weren't you?
Yeah, it didn't. It had something like maybe 250,000 views at the best. At best,
The first few hours, it just had 15,000 views. That was
I
it.
remember Mecca
Yeah.
was making fun of it too, and we were saying we've got videos on After Dark that got more views, and
Yeah, I was live when somebody pointed out to me, and I went over to it. That's when and people started commenting and stuff. But yeah, I can't remember what it was very low. We'll just say, and if you look at just your average episode of Cobra Kai, how many views that has is insane. I think what season the first episode had 50 million.
that's what I was gonna say. I knew it was at like 30 or 40 million last we checked, or something like that.
Now that's not people watching it all the way through, but
still, that just kind of put that in perspective, though, as a TV show. Because how many does what was the average again on Rob on Big Bang Theory? It was how many million a week generally? 7 to 11 million.
Yeah, it's more between 8 and 12 million a week.
Okay, and that's considered one of the, if not the biggest, one of the biggest television shows on television when it was on. Now it's over and done with. But okay, let's translate that. Even if a good third of those clicks on Cobra Kai aren't people watching it all the way through, there's at least 8 to 11 million that have, if not more. So that's a hit TV show right there.
Oh God, yeah. I bet Star Trek Discovery equates to like a show on Sci-Fi, like a Winona Earp. Probably gets like 100,000-200,000 views.
Yeah, and we don't know because they won't release numbers. But from what I've heard from inside, is their number one show isn't Star Trek Discovery anyway.
No, it's The Good Fight, right?
Yeah. You knew what I was going to say. Yeah.
Yep.
Because you probably heard the same thing.
Yep.
Well,
All right.
yeah.
Well,
Anyway, move along. Unless Gary's got to get rolling here, but yeah.
I'll do one more. It's been
One more.
fun. Thanks, guys.
Okay, we got JJ and Unique Series. We got Museum Piece. We got no Star Trek
Let's
merch.
jump to the toys. Yeah, let's jump to the toys because the
Okay.
rest of it,
No Star Trek merch. Okay. And we can backtrack if we need. Now this is about the lack of Star Trek merchandise. Now the guy sets it up by, if you listen to the whole thing, the guy sets it up by saying he went to a store in LA and there's no Star Trek merchandise at all. And he thought that was very unusual. And this is how Kurtzman responds to that.
Now, I think that's because Trek toys were gravely mismanaged when they were first put into the world back in the late 60s, early 70s. And so they didn't make the mark that they needed to make. There's a documentary series on Netflix called The Toys That Made Us, and it really walks you through exactly what a train wreck that the Trek toys were back then. People just didn't know what to do with it, to the point that, when the show started getting popular, the toy company, I can't remember which toy company it was.
Mego?
Yeah, it was like Remco or something like that.
Yeah.
They took an old like police helmet that had like a siren on top, and they just
Spock helmet.
literally sticker that said Spock on the front, and they made it the Spock helmet. And we were like, "What is the Spock helmet?"
Yeah.
Like,
I seen that thing. I thought it was a Spock.
just look it up online. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But it's a perfect testament to, or like the Trekulator, the Trek calculator, like, because kids love math so much. Why? So I think part of it too is that there was never an output of shows like we're planning on doing that allowed for, and especially for younger generations, that allowed toys to actually even be on shelves. So this is an example of a year or two from now when the animated shows come out and we have 2 more Star Trek shows on the air.
Yeah.
I'm really curious to see what's happening on those toy
Yeah,
shelves.
that will be interesting.
It's a long-term plan.
Yeah, because you'll get all the rights to them.
that's
Okay.
something that I've always wanted to point it out since, like, a lot of the stuff in the beginning and a lot of these new things they're doing. And that's why Picard is the only thing, or the only portion of this, that it's something that's already been pre-existing. Because everything that they create, Kurtzman's going to get a piece of. That's a very big point there, Mecca.
And how did that answer the question? Rob said it set up like I went to a store and didn't see any Star Trek stuff. Was he not talking about? Look, I got Star Trek stuff from the 70s. They were some of the first toys I ever played with. He even tried to feed him one. So remember, the question was, why don't I see any Star Trek stuff now? And he said, well, because the Spock helmet sucked. What? Mego Star Trek were the greatest toys ever created. Are you effing kidding me?
I got a stack of them that I bought this year. I've got the mirror, both of the mirror sets. I've got the Gorn.
Totally disregards.
I have originals from when I was a kid.
And notice how he
the bridge
regards the Playmate years as well.
I had the helicopter toy, the helicopter rescue toy that they just rebranded as a Star Trek thing.
Remember what he's bringing up. That's what he's using as an excuse as to why they don't have Star Trek toys now. And then he even tries to use a very bad example. That's cool. That's awesome.
That is cool. I want one of those.
My wife's.
Shine.
My wife. Yeah, my wife knows more about Star Trek than Kurtzman.
Does she have? No, I was going to say, does she have?
She's actually a Trekkie. So
I didn't have you full view there. Gary.
Oh, yes. I mean, I just have these in reach. I have crates full of Star Trek.
Well, you got right behind you is what I was just bringing up. He totally disregards the Playmate years,
and those the Mego years, and the Playmate years were great. I know people sometimes don't like them. I love them. I think they're brilliant.
How many different ones did they have? How many different lines did they have? Obviously, they were selling. People were buying them. I know tons of people who had them. I even had some back in the day. You've got a whole half a wall. Looks like they're full of them.
I got more to put up too. They had line after line after line of Star Trek: The Next Generation. The later ones they didn't do as much, but they were there. I saw Enterprise action figure. I went to Blast from the Past in Burbank when I was on my way from Contact in the Desert. And they had a giant Star Trek section, and in the corner, right down on the floor, there was Star Trek Discovery badges, which could easily be confused for normal badges, like for a costume or something like that. And that's the only thing they had. But there's tons of Star Trek figures. I remember seeing them in the toy lines at aisles at KB and Toys R Us, entire aisles. They used to have Star Trek aisles. Yeah, where in the hell is that?
Like, this is just crap I grabbed off the shelves.
Yep. Yeah, and you've got that's the only new thing you can get is Picard and Kirk right there, the McFarlane ones, the action figures. There is a Michael Burnham picture on the back, and that's as close as it's going to get.
Yeah, I think they had some statues at one of the Comic-Cons or whatever, and that was it.
Yep. But McFarlane's not going to make them. They must be pissed. They got that contract and they can't do anything with it.
So he's basically making a bunch of excuses as to why there is no merchandise instead of just saying, yeah, we fucked up. People don't want to buy this shit. And what we have made, I'm sure isn't selling well. Now Big Sexy, what's your take on the whole merchandising situation?
The fact that the guy has positioned himself, to get a taste off of their merch is, first of all, it's self-dealing. Second of all, it is reprehensible. And you can't create off of someone else's IP and then call it your own, because at the bottom line, at the end of the day, this is still Star Trek. This is still someone else's intellectual property. And Kurtzman needs to understand he works for them. They don't work for him. So they may give him a taste of this IP, but it ain't his. And by the way, Kurtzman, fuck you again.
Yeah, and this is an extension kind of what JJ had went through, and that was his hissy fit because they wouldn't quit selling old Trek merchandise while he was trying to cash in on Trek himself on the other end, because they were outselling his shit and nobody was buying his crap. And really, it's like, you think about it, JJ, not even if they were to bow down, and CBS was to bow down and say, okay, we'll quit doing it, your shit still ain't going to sell. That's the thing. That's where it's like, these people who defend this crap too, it's like, do you understand the mentality of these people? They are basically saying they know you will buy this shit and it doesn't matter if it's garbage or not, because they just, as long as if it's all that it's in JJ's mind, if that was all that was available for Star Trek fans to buy, they were going to buy it. Period.
Yep.
Do you guys get what I'm saying?
Yeah, they think so little of us that we'll just buy any garbage.
Exactly.
Oh, we'll just buy it. You'll buy anything. That's how Kathleen Kennedy is. That's how all of them are. And they come in and they're culturally appropriating this.
Yeah. His excuse was the other shit was distracting us. That's the only reason we weren't buying it.
No, because I don't want Michael fucking Burnham and Saru on a toy. Like Saru is okay. Saru, we'll pick on Saru. We'll pick on a white man. That character looks, to quote SC reviews, like a skinned corpse, right? He
He's
looks
one of my favorite characters
disgusting,
from the new show.
and I
That's-
like his. Yeah, I liked his character too. I don't want his toy because he looks creepy and gross, right? The makeup is disgusting. I don't want toys of the new Klingons.
Let's
I
say
don't
it.
want
He looks like
figures.
something from Star Wars.
Yep. And it is disgusting. I don't want these toys.
And everybody ignores also that was a race that was introduced in the JJ Trek comics as well.
I'm going to go ahead and say that.
Yeah, it was
Overrated anyway.
Mm-hmm.
What was it?
So again, somebody please tell me that there's no separation here between Bad Robot and CBS and the Paramount deal. Because that would be something that JJ owned flat out if they created that alien. Unless it existed in another form prior to that I don't know about or somebody hasn't brought to my attention, and I apologize if they haven't. As far as I know, that's a JJ creation. So please correct me if I'm wrong, somebody in the chat or whatever or on the panel. But
I mean, it's just amazing, just, based off of trademark law. How can somebody come to me and I have my own intellectual property and you write something or create something based off of that and it's not mine? Fuck out of here. No. So Kurtzman's out of his mind.
I don't think he cares. And it really feels like he's coming in, taking over, like appropriating our Star Trek culture and making it something that it isn't to fit his needs.
Exactly.
He's like walking into our house and throwing out all our stuff because it's old and redecorating when we didn't ask him to.
And yet our stuff still sells.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee you, if they did a line of Discovery figures and they made a chase figure like they did with, oh God, the Redemption Data that I have 2 of, by the way, if they did that and put it in like a 4-pack at Sears or something like that, no one is going to give a damn.
No, I wouldn't.
Nope.
Gary, you owned a comic book store. Did you sell a lot of Star Trek toys?
Yeah, a little bit. Like at the time I was running, it was kind of during the Enterprise was on the air a little bit, but Diamond Select was remaking the Migos. They did a Con Migo. I sold the crap out of that stuff. Yeah, but it was just specialty. But I sold a bunch of vintage figures. I did not order the Enterprise figures. I didn't think there was much of a market for them. But yeah, I sold tons of Star Trek stuff and Doctor Who stuff.
I remember,
but most of it was vintage.
Yeah, I remember selling a few odd and ends in my video store, and that'd have been 2000, 2001 era, and it sold better than the Star Wars stuff. Nobody wanted the Episode 1 shit I had.
Oh yeah, that was
that shit.
No, God, no. Star Wars went through a second resurgence. Yeah, I couldn't give that stuff away for a while there. So, and Star Trek
after the movie came out, and we were promoting the movie on DVD at the same time because they just brought finally after 2 years or whatever it was, Episode 1 on DVD. So, and I couldn't give this shit away.
No. Star Trek is, as you guys have said a million times, is niche. It's only got it will only go so far. It will not become Star Wars, but it's a great guaranteed fan base if you don't alienate them all, and you'll make a very consistent amount of money forever. But just don't try to make it something it's not. And you can bring in new fans if you maintain your old ones, because as Tom and I have had this conversation, we shepherd them in. That's what our job is. There's this old show called Star Trek that you might really like. And my kid watches the original series. So yeah, it's still for kids, but he would never even look at Star Trek Discovery because it doesn't look like Star Trek. It's a hot mess, and kids don't watch streaming services. They just don't, and they never will. They move too slow for them, and there's not enough variety. And kids love, the connectivity with somebody making a video on YouTube or IGTV.
Exactly. You can interact with somebody on a live stream or something, or on Twitch or on YouTube, or if something doesn't interest you, if you're bored, you can go to another live stream, or you can go to another 15-minute video.
Right. And this is also something that Mecca and I have talked about in private, so she'll relate to this. A lot of people like to discover shit on their own too. They don't like people to just force shit upon them. They like to discover something, and then you find the fans. And that's my thing too with the whole gatekeeper thing. No, we're not gatekeepers, but we are key masters. We will show you the way. But we're not going to force anything on anybody. At least the best of us won't. I mean, I'm not going to. My kid does not watch movies. You would think if anybody who knows me, I'm like, I live and breathe movies and TV shows and franchise, all that shit. He could care less. The only stuff he watches is once in a while he'll watch a Fast and the Furious or Back to the Future movie. And that's because he's really into cars. That's it. And I couldn't tell you the last time he watched a movie.
No, and that's another thing I kind of need to bring up on this. People always ask, people will ask, hey, you're really into Star Trek. I'm a Star Wars person. Where would I start? And I never point them to Discovery. And that's one thing you really, really have to, and I kind of warn them against it. I get a lot of people coming in from the Star Wars side because I do a lot of Star Wars content too. And they're like, okay, well, I've never watched Star Trek. Is there somewhere I should start if I want to get into it? And I always point them to TOS and TNG because they're easy to digest and they're easy to understand. And they're a really good they're a good example of the franchise,
and they're episodic TV, so you can kind of just get into them.
Exactly.
Launch pad point. I mean, TNG to a point a little bit more so than TOS, but TOS you can pick up pretty much anywhere, and not be lost. I mean, it does. It's that
even TNG you can
to a point.
Yeah.
It's that comic book mentality, and Robin, I'm sure Gary and Big Sexy and Random Ball heard this before, and many of you have heard this before, but Stanley has always said every comic is somebody's first comic. So no, you don't have to tell everybody's backstory in a 10-page flashback, but if you just throw in a bit of dialogue here and there that just kind of explains where the character came from, how they got their powers, or something that relates to that, it's easier for the reader to digest and just get into the story. So I mean, I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about, this Stanley, idea of every comics, so every television show can be somebody's first TV show if it's done correctly. Now it's more difficult with a lot of these shows where like Game of Thrones, where you just have to watch from the beginning and stuff like that. But with Star Trek, it always was this show that anybody could get indoctrinated at any time. You didn't have to be so in depth and in knowledge and knowledgeable of Star Trek. And that's something I think the movies always were pretty good at, even though they stray from some of the standard Trekisms. They're easier for people to get into. So even sometimes I'll tell somebody, if you're really like a novice Trekker or don't know anything about Trek, start with Voyage Home, because I've said this to a million people. It doesn't have to be a Star Trek movie to work. You can just basically say it's about people from the future who need a whale to save Earth. It doesn't matter that they're Captain Kirk and Spock. All you know is that they're people in the future who are out of fish out of water in the modern day, trying to find a fucking whale. That's the plot. It doesn't matter that it's a Star Trek movie, and people can get into that, and it's funny, it's engaging, and you get to learn the characters as you go. And that was my entryway into the whole thing.
Oh yeah, same here. It's a great starting point, because you get the idea of who these characters are, what they represent, what they do. You kind of get a bigger picture of the universe. You get little details, I totally, when I was a kid, I didn't know they were in a Klingon ship. I didn't know that wasn't there. I didn't.
It doesn't really matter.
Exactly.
It doesn't really matter, and that's the best part about that being an entry level film.
Yeah.
And I always point to that one as a good one for people to to get into, and even Wrath of Khan.
Yeah,
same thing, because it works as an action movie. It doesn't matter that it's a Star Trek movie. It works on its own as its own sci-fi movie as well. I don't know if anybody else disagrees with me on that.
No, not at all. Yeah. That propelled. I liked the motion picture. I watched it in the theaters when I was a kid, and I remember people going nuts in the theater when McCoy hit the screen with his beard, and people just went berserk. And I loved it, but I don't know what the stuff that I could go on forever on this, but what really got me into Wrath of Khan was when they were on the space station and it was kind of like a horror movie. They were walking through and the doors were open again. There was like little jump scares, or they were anticipating them. I don't know, whatever about it that like made me look at Star Trek a whole new way. And goddamn, I love that movie. Sorry, I'll blather on forever about it. The greatest soundtrack ever. Just everything about that movie.
Picture is the best movie for Star Trek fans that they were going to get at that point.
Yeah.
If you were going to get a love letter to Star Trek fans, that was it. Like, if you wanted a big screen version of Star Trek,
Wrath of Khan is like
a movie.
That's forever. Yeah, it's a movie by itself that you can watch. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't watched Voyage Home in a long time. I remember at the time loving it.
Like I said, works because the great part is like Mecca says, it doesn't even really matter that they're in a Klingon ship. You don't have to know that for the story to work. It just works on its own. Like, you could transplant any characters in there. They don't have to be Star Trek characters. It's just the main plot works on its own as its own, and it's funny and it's humorous.
Hey,
and you get a laugh out of it. So.
Absolutely. And Captain, you're old enough to remember there was rumors around of William Shatner getting nominated for that movie for best actor. Yes,
everybody loved that one when it came out. I think that was the highest grossing one for a while too, if somebody can remember correctly, until some of the TNG movies.
That was a giant hit that summer, I remember.
I think Wrath of Khan might have beat it, actually. I don't think it made as much as Wrath of Khan did. But that was probably just because of Star Trek 3.
Yeah.
But Big Sexy, you've been quiet. Anything to add to the whole merchandise thing or anything we've been just talking about? Or
No. Yeah, again, my whole thing with merchandise is A, nobody wants it. B, the only reason it's even being discussed is so Kurtzman can lie in his pocket. And that's not going to work. You can't crank out merch for a bullshit property that nobody wants to see. That's like going back to the 70s. I'm going to date myself with this one. There was a fire show back in the day called Emergency that had its own merch. Then there was a show called Code Red that nobody bought shit from because nobody cares.
Mm-hmm.
Discovery is now Code Red.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. And that's the one tangible thing that they can't fool us on. All right. If your show is successful and popular, there will be toys made. There will be a Spore Drive play set. Where in the hell's that with your giant blue tardigrade? Comes with your play set. If this is so goddamn popular, where are your freaking toys? If kids are loving it, where are your toys? Where's your stuff? Because that's where you make all your money. You don't make it off the streaming service or anything. It's off the licensing, like you guys have said forever. That's why, Doctor Who's going to crash and burn too. They aren't making stuff anymore.
And let's just say it, because they're full of shit, because we've said it a million times. And Gary, you can probably attest to this too, or however you want to put it. Majority of the people who buy action figures and stuff are our age. Look at Mecca's got a whole room full of it behind her.
And yeah, I got one thing of merch from Doctor Who.
No, let's face it. Why do you think all these figures are 100% screen accurate and articulate, nice, and 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 bucks a piece? Not because some kid's going to buy them. We're going to buy them. And if we're not even buying them, that's telling. You can't tell me that, considering the show is supposed to be geared towards adults, where is this supposed big, huge fan base? Even the Dreckies. Where are they at? There must not be enough of them, if you ask me, to sell this shit, because they're testing the grounds with the other stuff, the stuff that they can make themselves, the t-shirts, the mugs, the posters, the pins, all that stuff. It can be like commissioned out of house.
That's Etsy stuff. Yeah, that's Etsy stuff that I can make. Mecca, you were in the, they were throwing stuff at us for like 3 days, 4 days. I stopped paying attention, but they kept on throwing comic books at me from IDW. I'm all, dude, check the bio, bro. And then I shot back one guy. I'm like, this is how much this was Star Trek Discovery. It was issue 2 of some mini series that sold 6,000 whole copies in the entire world. 600 or 6,000 copies. Yeah, for Star Trek. And that's an impulse buy. I've owned a comic shop, and the comic shop owner does not watch Star Trek Discovery. He or she says, oh, it says Star Trek on it, so my Star Trek people will buy it. And they order it. And then if you go down the next issue, it's dropped by 20 or 30%. Yeah, so please don't throw comic books as official merchandise. And the company, by the way, IDW, is about to go out of business as well. So,
yeah, I heard something like that.
Yeah,
but,
they're in trouble. Serious trouble.
I think we should probably, I mean, there's plenty more to break down with this. Was there anything that was really major we had to get through to Rob? Because Gary already brought up the other part that he mentioned.
Sorry, I ruined everything, didn't I?
No. We know you got to get going too, and we've already been on now for
let me just
much longer.
Well, let me play the last clip about will we see Spock again?
Okay, yeah, let's do that real quick. And
This is the last one. As I said before, you can hear the entire interview on Deadline.com. You can check out Crew Call Podcast on iTunes or on I can't remember what it is. It wasn't SoundCloud. It was some other.
It's SoundCloud probably.
Yeah, SoundCloud.
Stitcher?
Okay, yeah. Stitcher. Yeah, Stitcher. You can check it out on Stitcher. It's a free download. And so you can hear the entire interview. But we will leave this here. Alex Kurtzman comments on will we see Spock again?
We can't. I would be remiss in saying you're going to see Spock again on Discovery because we've obviously jumped so far into the future that it wouldn't make sense for him to be
on the Enterprise.
Yeah, but we were lucky. I think that we got away with what we got away with, and ultimately the fans embraced the canonical connection between what we did in season 2 and everything else that Spock has ever been in. But the idea of bringing Ethan back and Anson and Rebecca and the Enterprise, I mean, we loved it so much that to find a way to do that is definitely something we're thinking about a lot.
You're thinking.
Why would it just be they're thinking about it a lot? Wouldn't that be their number one priority if they loved him so much? Wouldn't that be, oh, we've got all these people and the fans love them? Why would they not just be why wouldn't we say yes, that's the one thing we're trying our best to do? Priority.
Because he can't upstage Mikey Spock.
Right?
Oh God. So tired of Mikey Spock. It's not even funny.
They're probably going to make her if there's a season 3. I don't know. They're probably going to make her a superhero. I mean, she's got her suit. She can fly around like Riri. But with the Spock thing, that looks like a last-minute decision to me. I don't know how it looks to you guys, but again, as he said with the short treks, it's where we can get experimental. Basically, throw as much crap on the wall as we can to see if something will work, because nothing is. And if we'll find out with Picard that this will be the ultimate test. But with the Spock thing, oh God, he wasn't even that great. I'm sorry, I wasn't a fan of Pecker at all. I liked Pike. I liked the idea of him, but he was written like such a I won't say it, but
cuck. He was a cuck.
Thank you. Cuckton Pike, or puke, as Doomcock says. Oh, sorry, that was my dog.
It's okay.
The dog agrees.
The dog agrees.
Yeah, the dog agrees. The dog.
All right. All right. Well, that's about it then. We're all exhausted from listening to this.
Yeah, we have a new show to do here, our regular live program. So anyway, we want to thank Big Sexy for taking the time to join us from the Redshirts podcast.
Glad I could pop in, and always like hanging out with you guys. And lady.
And Gary, of course, from Nerdrodic. We know you're a busy man, so taking the time with us here has been a great honor and a pleasure as always. Thank you so much.
The pleasure was mine. Thank you for having me on. And nice to meet you, Big Sexy, by the way.
Oh, nice to meet you.
Yeah, you guys didn't get a proper introduction. Sorry about that.
All good. All good. I kind of came in late, so I came in.
All right. It's all good. Oh, but you stayed a hell of a lot longer than you said you were going to, so we appreciate that.
No problem.
And of course, Mecca, as always, we enjoy having your company, and we'll be seeing you again here in a few minutes on the regular program. I'm going to throw the link up in the chat here.
Yeah, thanks. I'm always here, so yes. Go to the next one.
Yes,
hop.
2 minutes to take a pee, and then we'll start.
Anyway, Big Sexy, tell them about tell them about yourself and the Redshirt podcast. Where can everybody find you?
Well, we can be found at the Redshirts podcast. My captain Q-Storm has got a couple things cooking, so we've kind of been in dry dock, but we're going to come out of that in a couple of weeks with some new material. I myself, and this is another breaking news, under the Big Sexy banner, I will probably be doing my own music-based podcast in about 3 weeks.
Hear that? Breaking news. Breaking news. When news breaks, we fix it.
Yeah,
Okay.
Gary's gonna have to check into that whole Walking Dead thing, I think, too. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm a big music head, and two of my clients, independent of each other, one just gave me a very, very, very expensive Mark Levinson power amp, and the other gave me a pair, and I just picked them up, of B&W 805 Series 3 speakers. Oh, yes.
Sweet.
Oh, yes. It's about to get good over here.
Oh, yeah. Gary, tell them where you can find you.
Oh, I can be found at a channel called Nerdrodic. It's an up and comer. We're chugging along. We're quiet today. Yesterday and today we are quiet in honor of dear Anna and her sister Ellen. And I also have a website called nerdrodic.com just in case YouTube ever goes away. Just like the Hangouts are going to go away August 1st. You never know. So
congratulations again on hitting over 100K.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, I've never been so glad to say I told you so to anybody in my life, because it was like a year ago or a little more than that. I'm like, you're gonna be big, you're gonna get there, you're gonna be 100K before you know it. You're like, no way.
I never thought it would happen. It's still unreal, but I still think like you guys should be bigger, Mecca should be bigger, and Doomcock should be bigger. But
it's the algorithm. What can we do?
Who can figure it out?
Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of Mecca, tell me where you can find you.
Yes.
Well, here every time we go live, pretty much. My own channel, I'm Mecca Random 42. I complain about all the stuff. I went back into the Kick Vic world today because that's what was triggering me today. And I talk about mostly Star Trek, Star Wars. That new Charlie's Angels looks terrible. That woman. So that's I guess the new stuff for now. Oh, and Bill and Ted and Ghostbusters.
Yeah, we got some good stuff coming up on the regular podcast here too. So grab that link, guys. Check it out. Check out Mecca's channel. Check out Gary's channel. Check out Big Sexy on the Redshirts podcast. And of course, be sure you got that bell icon clicked, and be sure to even check that subscribe button, because YouTube likes to unsubscribe people from stuff all the time.
Yes, they do.
And without getting into too many details, please go to the. Do we have the link for the GoFundMe for?
Yeah, I'll get that in the description when we're done here. But don't worry about that so much now. Is if you've got a little extra scratch right now to do anything with, donate it to help with what's going on with Anna over there and the funeral fund for her sister and stuff like that. Gary, do you have the link? You could probably send that to me. I could probably put that in the description too. So
I have the link. I will get it to you. Yeah, if anybody could help, that'd be great. She's going.
Yeah, that's right now probably the better choice.
All I'll say is nobody should be going through what she had to go. So that's all I'm going to say about that.
And we Sadie, I know it's that.
Yeah, Sadie.
Yes. But yeah, that's another reason why we didn't do this yesterday. We had originally planned on it. We decided to stay quiet too, like everybody else did, at least for yesterday. But anyway, back to work again for us. So we'll see you in a few minutes. And we again want to thank everybody on the panel. And I'll get that GoFundMe link right in the chat, or the description and the chat, actually. Thank you so much for sending me that, Gary. All right.
All right. Thank you. Get him, Sadie. Thanks, everyone, for joining us.
Captain, incoming message.
Well, we'll catch you next time.
Intruder alert on deck 8.
In a few minutes, if you're
In a few minutes. That's right.
Functions are offline. Automatic defense procedures initiated. Diagnostic complete. Sensors are functioning normally.
Jaloja!
Thanks again, Gary, for hanging out, and thanks for joining us, Big Sexy, and tell Q and everybody we said, hey, Craig, and all that. We got to get Craig out here. We haven't had. Sorry about that, Sadie.
Sadie.
We're still live.
Glad I could join. Glad I could help out, guys. And again, feel free to call me.